Good morning. It is 5 a.m. and I'm Jay Harper in for Joan Jones, and I've got your top stories. Authorities on Florida's Gulf Coast, they're searching for a boat involved with a deadly hit-and-run crash on the water involving a passenger ferry. Here's ABC's Andrew Dimbert with more.
Police in Clearwater say a boat hit the ferry, which was carrying about 45 people. At least one person on the ferry was killed, several others injured. The ferry was packed with people going back and forth to a days-long festival that had just wrapped up. After it was hit, the ferry came to a rest on a sandbar near a bridge. Passengers say the boat that hit the ferry then sped away.
And we now turn to north of the border. Another disaster there. The city of Vancouver mourning the loss of several festival attendees over the weekend when a car rammed into a festival celebrating Lapu Lapu Day. Here's ABC's Andrea Fujii.
Emergency responders rushed to a street festival Saturday night. Witnesses say the vehicle drove around a barrier, then sped up in this area packed with people. At least 11 people, ranging in ages from 5 to 65, were killed. Authorities warn the death toll could rise.
Back here in Middle Tennessee, over 400 workers will be losing their jobs after an automotive seating manufacturer announced the permanent closure of 2 facilities here in the Volunteer State. According to WARN notices filed with the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development, Aviation facilities in Murray and Henderson counties will be permanently closed this summer. The notices were posted back on April 22nd and 23rd. Both facilities will be permanently shut down on June 27th. Officials have identified the 3 people who died following a plane crash in White County on Saturday. According to the Federal Aviation Administration, a small aircraft with 3 people on board crashed around noon on Saturday. Dean Selby, he's the Upper Cumberland Regional Airport Director, confirmed to WKRN that all 3 occupants died as a result of the single-engine plane crash, which happened about a mile south of the airport. Selby also told the station the individuals who died have been identified as the pilot, Jonathan Braun, along with 2 passengers, a husband and wife from Alabama, Dylan Clay Davis, and his bride, Kelsey Lynn Davis. No cause for the crash has been announced. The Market Numbers Report brought to you by Beacon Capital Management. They can be found online at beaconcm.com.
Stock futures point to a lower opening as traders wait for some key reports on the economy. The so-called Magnificent Seven, including Meta, Microsoft, and Apple, all report their quarterly earnings this week. The major stock indexes rounded out a down week with slight gains on Friday. The Dow Jones picked up 20 points to finish the trading week slightly above 40,000. The S&P rose 0.75%. The Nasdaq Composite added 1.25%. China is reportedly easing some of its tariffs on American goods. The Wall Street Journal says Beijing is quietly waiving most of the 125% tariffs on some imports, including medical products, aviation parts, and equipment to make computer chips. With proms, weddings, and Mother's Day looming, the nation's florists have another concern: tariffs. Colombia, Canada, and Ecuador are all leading suppliers of flowers to the U.S. Those countries now face tariffs from the Trump administration.
Now let's take a look at the stock futures here this morning. The Dow up 23, the S&P's down 1.25, and the Nasdaq, it's up 3.25. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather are next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News. Well, at 5 minutes past 5 a.m., no traffic problems to report. Smooth sailing thus far coming into the metro. We've got your traffic every 10 minutes, every morning and afternoon on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.507 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Welcome on in to your Monday, April 28th of 2025. Hope you are doing well. We've got some tariff talk, all the latest there. A brand new hoax regarding President Trump. That is straight ahead as well. We've got the latest on these arrested judges after they chose to side with illegal aliens. Stunning stories as we continue on for a Monday. So I want to get into the judge's story first because I do find this incredibly fascinating. Now, on Friday, there were arrests of a couple of judges. Well, there was last week, there was a judge in New Mexico that was arrested for harboring Tren de Aragua gang members. We're going to get into that story as well. And Jonathan Fahey, by the way, is going to join us later on in the morning to talk about these in more detail. But then on Friday, after we got off the air, a massive story unfolds as a judge in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, was arrested as well for trying to help an illegal alien escape ICE. That's right. She's got an illegal alien in her courtroom, and ICE shows up, and she sends, and I've got all the details, but she sends ICE and, some of the other representatives from law enforcement to literally another chamber. And when they go to that other chamber to talk to the chief judge, she helps this guy in her courtroom escape. It is one of the most stunning stories, although I don't know why I'm stunned, because these liberal judges, this is what they do. But remember, this is the mantra from the Democrats, and I got to tell you, friends, this never gets old.
The idea that no person is above the law is a bedrock principle of American justice.
No man is above the law, no matter what the crime.
And I agree with you. No man is above the law.
How about
no
judges?
Person is above the law.
No one is above the law.
No man
No
is
one.
above the law.
Nobody is above
Not
the
even
law.
this
No one is
Milwaukee,
above the law.
Wisconsin judge named Hannah Dugan. And so what she did is she decided to shield an illegal alien from ICE. Now, here's the story. This is from the Associated Press. Dugan, again, Hannah Dugan, a judge in Milwaukee. You know that the Trump administration has been battling judges at every turn, right? Dugan was arrested and charged with obstruction of an official proceeding on Friday after evidence comes to light that she had shielded a migrant from ICE agents, according to a criminal complaint. She was also charged with concealing an individual to prevent discovery and arrest. So federal agents from the FBI, ICE, CBP, and DEA attempted to arrest an undocumented male, a Mexican national named Eduardo Flores Ruiz, following his scheduled criminal court appearance before Dugan back on April 18th to face 3 misdemeanor battery charges for allegedly beating 2 people. Dugan demanded that the officers proceed to the Chief Justices of the Chief Judge's office. And after that hearing ended, she escorted Flores Ruiz and his attorney out a restricted jury door, bypassing the public area where agents were waiting in order to help him avoid arrest per the complaint. In other words, she's got agents from ICE, FBI, CBP, and the DEA. She's horrified. And so she says, you know what? If you want to do this, you have to go speak to the chief judge. And I'm assuming his office is down there. And so after the hearing with this Flores Ruiz, she helps him escape through a back door so that they wouldn't see him. They eventually, by the way, arrested this guy outside of the courthouse. But Dugan, who, by the way, has worked with, listen to this, legal aid organizations and as an executive director of Catholic Charities. Now, you know the Catholic Charities, right? They facilitate all of these illegal aliens coming into communities all across the country, including Nashville. So you know that she is somebody who is pro-illegal immigration. She is pro-illegal alien. So the story makes sense. So now they have people over the weekend, I don't know if you saw this, but they have people now over the weekend in Milwaukee protesting her arrest. So first of all, let's talk about the guy that she was trying to protect. Again, his name is Eduardo Flores Ruiz. This is Attorney General Pam Bondi.
And this case involved someone who was deported under President Obama, came back into our country, we don't know when, illegally. And he was living at a residence, and he beat up a man so badly he had to go to the hospital, his roommate. He punched him with a closed fist in the face 30 times. The victim fell to the ground, and he choked him. Then the girlfriend came in, tried to break it up. He punched a woman in the face with a closed fist so hard she fell to the ground. He hit her in the arm. Both of them had to go to the hospital. The fight's broken up. They're taken to the hospital, and he's threatening to do further harm to them later. So it's hard enough to get any victim of domestic violence to cooperate. We had 2 victims sitting in a courtroom that day.
So it is important for you to notice, you know, this isn't a mom who had a couple of kids here and, you know, they're trying to deport this innocent illegal alien mom that has been, you know, working overnight, cleaning factories to support her. This is a guy that beat the living crap out of 2 people. And this judge, Hannah Dugan, was trying to protect this guy by sending the agents off to another judge's chambers, and then she escorts him out the back door. It is crazy. And so Pam Bondi, she's on with ABC, and she says that with all the immigration authorities there to pick this guy up because he is an illegal alien, and yes, he is here illegally, and he beat the crap out of 2 people, allegedly. This was the best and the safest way to pick him up and send him back, was right there at the courthouse.
He's the defendant, Ruiz, 2 victims and a prosecutor, a state prosecutor in the courtroom. It is routinely done when people are picked up on any kind of warrants that it's done outside a courtroom. It's been done in that courthouse. It's been done in a courthouse where I prosecuted 20 years ago. Executing a warrant is one of the most dangerous things law enforcement officers can do. Yep. You never know what you're going to encounter behind that door, what kind of weapons, with any defendant. So the safest place to do it is if you know they're going to be in a courthouse because they've gone through security. You know a defendant isn't armed. It's a sterile daytime situation. It's routinely done in courthouses, any kind of warrants.
Yeah, I mean, this is done all the time. You know a guy's going to be in court, and you go pick him up. He's illegal. He is an illegal alien. And so realize now we have more politicians, you know, the same ones that had the story of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, that whole story absolutely blowing up in their face. And now they've got another illegal alien, Angel, that they can try to defend and they can try to help. And that is Eduardo Flores Ruiz, accused of beating the living crap out of two people. And he was here illegally. And this judge helping him escape, and now she has been arrested. And now, of course, the very predictable hand-wringing has begun. We'll talk about that and a whole lot more straight ahead. 5:15, it's time to check the roads on a Monday. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Well, in the West End area, we have picked up a crash here early this morning, 21st Avenue South at Blair Boulevard. Aside from that, things looking smooth this morning. We've got your traffic every 10 minutes, every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Jay. And for Joan Jones, Joan returns tomorrow. As far as your weather goes, a high of 88, partly cloudy. No rain today, but we do have thunderstorms expected through Thursday. And your complete forecast coming up at 5:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So illegal immigration, it is almost a daily topic of conversation on talk radio for a number of different reasons. Number one is because we've got a lot of illegal aliens in this country. So that's number one. But number two is because now we have judges, the Democrat Party, Democrats by and large, that are fighting the Trump administration at every turn, trying to get these bad guys out of our country. And so right now we're talking about this Eduardo Flores Ruiz, and we have this judge named Hannah Dugan who went out of her way to try to rescue this guy from ICE. And so the critics are now coming out. I love this. The mayor of Milwaukee puts ICE and Donald Trump on full blast. This was on Saturday.
What happened here was just showboating. They're just trying to have this show of force, and in the process of doing this in a courthouse where people need to go for court proceedings, they're scaring people away from participating in the process. So if they are witness to a crime or something of the sort, they're not going to go and participate, and that makes our community less safe.
So the issue is with how the arrest happened, not necessarily that there was an investigation.
Again, I don't know all the things that happened there, but I'm saying...
How can you not know? So if you are the mayor of Milwaukee and you're out there spewing that what Donald Trump and these various agencies, including ICE, did, which is show up and deport a guy, pick up a guy who needs to be deported, and he beat the crap out of a couple of people, and you're saying that it is Trump and ICE that are making their neighborhoods there in Milwaukee less safe. Oh, I don't know the details of it. I don't know the details at all. All I know is that anytime ICE shows up to get rid of an illegal alien who beat the crap out of a couple of people, that makes our communities less safe. You know what I'm talking about when I say the very reflexive nature of Democrats, where anything Donald Trump does is wrong, regardless of the fact that they are trying to rid their community of a guy who is illegal and is out there beating people up. But according to the mayor of Milwaukee, it's Donald Trump who is out there making the community less safe. Got it.
And I don't know all the things that happened there, but I'm saying that the way that they went about this, in this ham-handed, haphazard way that this administration has been doing since day one, it's driving people away, or has potential to drive people away from participating in court proceedings, which makes our community less safe.
So he kept going. I mean, if I had a nickel for every time this dude said that Trump and ICE were making the community less safe, I mean, I'd be rich, because that was his message. You know, forget about the details about who this guy is, or the fact that what he did was abhorrent, or the fact that they had witnesses right there ready to testify against this guy, or that this judge apparently broke the law. She's now been arrested, but broke the law when she sent ICE and these other agencies to speak to another judge in another part of the building while she ushered this bad guy out of the building. Unbelievable. And so I think, obviously, what I would say to the mayor of Milwaukee is that what makes communities less safe is having bad guys out on the streets. And that is what this guy was, a bad guy who attacked two people. And so when people like this are allowed back out on the streets, say it with me, that makes these communities, what is it?
Less safe.
That's right. It makes these communities
less safe.
That's what I'm saying. Of course, according to the mayor of Milwaukee, what makes these cities
less safe
is actually getting rid of the bad guys. You see, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever, these leftists. No sense whatsoever. He also, by the way, has said Pam Bondi and Donald Trump are simply trying to intimidate judges. That obviously is not true.
What do you say to critics who warn that you're attempting to intimidate the courts?
You know what we're doing? We're attempting to protect victims. We're attempting to protect citizens, make America safe again. That's what we're doing. And if you commit a crime in this country, you're going to be held accountable. Doesn't matter. We're going to prosecute you. No one is above the law, not even a judge. We've seen that in Milwaukee, and we've seen it in New Mexico.
Yep, and wait till you hear what is going on in New Mexico with this other judge. Also coming up, lead reporter for the New York Times is out there calling this judge heroic. We'll talk about that and a whole lot more right before the news at 5:30 with Jay Harper, who is in for Joan Jones. Jay, what is coming up at 5:30?
Well, there's some optimism after a meeting between President Trump and President Zelensky at Pope Francis's funeral. Also, a rather interesting story here in Nashville where, crime does not pay, and it'll also get you beat up. We'll have those stories for you at 5:30. Hello, here on WTN.
Did you know you're overpaying for your health and wellness products?
With over 20 company-owned brands offering its members vitamins, supplements, wellness, and skincare products, you're able to save up to 70% off retail.
Members Nutrition can't change your life, but we can change the way you live.
526. Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Welcome on into a Monday. And Jay Harper is in for Joan Jones. She'll be back tomorrow, KGB producing. And we have a lot to get to. I was just telling you in that first segment about this judge. And I do love this story. Because, of course, the Democrats, no one is above the law, right? That's their mantra, and they were talking about Donald Trump. But the reality is that there is this judge in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, who wanted this guy, an illegal alien who was accused of beating up two people. The authorities showed up to pick him up at his hearing there in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and she was appalled that ICE and the DEA and some of these other authorities came in to pick this guy up. And, you know, Pam Bondi has said that's the easiest place to pick these people up. And so she sends the authorities to another judge's chambers. And when she does that, she ushered this guy out a back door. And now she has been arrested. And most people would agree that, you know what, it seems like this judge broke the law. It seems to me like she broke the law, and that's why she has now been arrested, Judge Hannah Dugan. Now, there is a guy from the New York Times, David Brooks, because remember what the left likes to do. Kilmar Abrego Garcia, what did they do with him, right? They made him a hero. This illegal alien, human trafficking, girlfriend-beating gangbanger, and the left made him into a hero. Well, now this judge and probably this illegal alien who beat up the two people that was in her court, they're also now going to make her and him a hero. This is David Brooks from the New York Times.
There will be times for civil disobedience. And to me, let's say she did escort this guy out the door. If federal enforcement agencies come to your courtroom and you help a guy escape, that is two things. One, it strikes me as maybe something illegal, but it also strikes me as something heroic. And in times of trouble, then people are sometimes called to do civil disobedience. And in my view, when people do civil disobedience, they have to pay the price. That's part of the heroism of it, frankly.
Wow. So I don't know about you, but I can tell you that this judge is no hero. And any judge who tries to save or help or hinder the authorities in picking up illegal aliens, they're not heroes. What they're doing is they're setting up the American people to be victims of more crimes committed by these illegal aliens. This 5:30 News with Jay Harper is right now on WTN.
Good morning. Yes, it is 5:29, and I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. By the way, we will have some traffic and weather for you here shortly, so stand by. We will get you that information as quickly as we can. Now, as I wait for my computer to respond, there we are. All right, in the shadows of Pope Francis's funeral at the Vatican over the weekend, a high-stakes meeting between U.S. President Trump and Ukrainian President Zelensky took place, giving some Ukrainians a glimmer of hope that their strongest ally is still receptive to their goals, even as they push for a peace agreement with Russia. ABC's Rick Klein, he breaks down the significance of the face-to-face encounter with the Start Here podcast team.
This setting, at this moment, knowing that the Pope himself was so distressed by the cost of this war, I think all of that adds up for a rather extraordinary moment. And whether it's a permanent one or a marking point or just another change in Trump's mind that goes back and forth a few times remains to be seen. But the Ukrainians got a glimpse of what an end stage could look like with an American president that might be a bit amenable to the argument that they've been making.
Back here in the U.S., a deadly college shooting in the Tar Heel state. Elizabeth City State University officials say one person was killed, at least 5 others were injured in the college's annual Viking Fest events just after midnight Sunday. Student Paola Gonzalez spoke on the issue.
I ended up in the Vaughn parking lot, which is in front of our gym, and I turned around and I saw one of my teammates. I play volleyball here at ECSU. One of my teammates, she got shot in the leg. So I was seeing everyone just kind of like being around her, cops, tape getting pulled around her.
Officials say a 24-year-old man who was not a student was killed. Officials had not said yesterday if there had been an arrest just yet. Well, back here in Music City, a man is arrested after attempting to steal thousands of dollars worth of merchandise from a jewelry store in the West End area of town. Employees at Swarovski Jewelers, they locked a guy inside on Friday after the store manager reportedly saw him put about a $9,000 pendant in his sleeve as he was helping him. That's according to Metro Nashville Police. Police say the man pulled out a gun, pointed it at the manager's head, and threatened to stab, but one of the staff snuck up behind the guy, disarmed him, threw him to the ground, and held him till the police got there. Police identified the man as 40-year-old Joshua Calvo. They searched him and found more stolen merchandise on him. Also, the gun that Calvo used, surprise, it was stolen. After a search of the man's car, they found 126 grams of crack cocaine and another 120 some odd grams of fentanyl. Yeah, he's in serious trouble, facing numerous charges. Let's take a quick look at our stock futures here this morning. The Dow down 69, the S&P down 14, and the NASDAQ down 48. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather are next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News. Well, that earlier fender bender we had in the West End area has been cleared, and so far, so good on area roadways. Let's keep it that way. We've got your traffic every 10 minutes, every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.538, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And welcome on in to your Monday, April 28th of 2025. Lots going on. Let's get right to it. I'm not a sports guy by any stretch of the imagination, but I think this Shedeur Saunders story, was it Sanders?
Sanders.
Shedeur, Deion Sanders' son. And so Shedeur Sanders' story, I think is interesting because Donald Trump got involved in this. Now, the reason I find this interesting, I'm not an X's and O's kind of guy, but
If only you knew someone that is.
But I do find it really fascinating that he was supposed to go in the first round. And they say that he's a great quarterback, right?
Yes.
He's a great quarterback, the son of Deion Sanders. And he didn't go till, is it the fifth round?
Fifth round.
So the story goes that he went off and he spoke to 4 teams, one of which was the Tennessee Titans. And so the way that NFL drafts work, this is college players that are drafted into the NFL, and they go and they speak to, various teams that may need a quarterback specifically. And so he was supposed to go in the first round. But apparently this guy was such an arrogant arse and his attitude was such in these interviews that he embarrassed himself and he talked himself out of millions of dollars because the amount of money that one gets being a first rounder is considerably more than if somebody goes in the fifth round.
There's also a huge thing also is like when you're in the first round, you get an extra year to your contract if they want to. So they can extend it to another year. So that's another like 15, 20 million there.
So why did he ultimately get bounced from the first round to the fifth round? You're talking about hundreds of picks, right?
Yes, he was 147, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think he was 144.
144. It was,
but he was down there.
Yeah. Well, the funny part is the team that drafted him already drafted a quarterback before him.
Yeah.
They've got like 4 or 5 different quarterbacks now.
The Cleveland Browns, I don't know what they were thinking when it comes to 2 separate quarterbacks, and the one they drafted before him is like 2 years older.
Yeah, and a little bitty guy. He's like 5'11".
Yeah.
Not that a shorter quarterback can't be successful,
he had a
but
good
still.
career.
Yeah. Drew Brees, not a big guy. But, it was certainly a surprise.
It's very uncommon for a team to draft 2 rookie quarterbacks in the same draft. It rarely happens, if at all.
Yeah, they've got 4 quarterbacks now.
And they're paying one of them like $300 million.
Well, and so apparently this may have come from the front office, from Jimmy Haslam. Now,
that is a very real possibility.
Yeah, and so word is that the owner, and this is, by the way, right out of the movie Draft Day. If you've ever seen the movie Draft Day with Kevin Costner, great movie. But apparently the owner said, will you draft this guy already, Shedeur Sanders? And so they finally drafted him. You look at the pictures in the video of the coach of the Browns and also the GM, and you can tell they are not happy with the fact that clearly the Haslam owner, Jimmy Haslam, told them basically that they had to draft this guy. So now, Shedeur Sanders, he's a Cleveland Brown, and I did notice that he was saying all the right things after he was drafted because I think
he got humbled.
He's been sweating bullets for a few days.
Yeah, humbled is the right word for that. But also, like, there are reports from an anonymous front office guy saying when he interviewed Sanders or was part of the interview process, it was the worst one he's ever had.
Yep.
And that is never a good sign.
He was trying to tell the clubs what he was going to do.
Yeah, how he was going to, so one of the interviews he had during the draft combine, which is basically what Kaepernick calls slavery, that's that same thing. And it's basically them just running drills and that kind of thing, making sure they have everything they need to draft these kids. And he refused to participate, which is not something you do unless you're the undisputed number one pick. And then he said, if you're not going to change the culture, don't draft me. That's not your call when you're a rookie.
Well, here's the deal.
He just said all the wrong things.
I've interviewed people for jobs for, 30 years. I was a manager. Somebody comes in with an attitude like that, that person is going to be a nightmare to manage. So you don't invite a cancer into the clubhouse.
Unless he has the talent of his father. Deion Sanders was a once-in-a-lifetime kind of athlete, and he had that same kind of attitude going into the draft, where he was saying Detroit Lions do not draft me.
Right.
But then he became as one of the greatest of all time because he had that talent. Sanders is not at that level because only very few are. So I think it just got into his head.
And here's the other thing, Jay, is that Shedeur Sanders has really only worked or played for one coach, and that's his father.
That's his dad. Yeah.
So that is also a point of concern or contention.
Well, and I can also imagine that some coaches and organizations probably didn't want to deal with the whole family drama thing, because dad is going to be there telling him how to coach his son and how to use him. And,
there was news all over the place about his father being meddling into it before the draft.
Yeah.
He was sprinkled in there for a while.
And I thought it was fascinating that Trump
that was
into
bizarre.
The thing. So he sends out a social media message. What is wrong with NFL owners? Are they stupid? Deion Sanders was a great college football player and was even greater in the NFL. He's also a very good coach, streetwise and smart. Therefore, Shedeur, his quarterback's son, has phenomenal genes and is all set for greatness. He should be picked immediately by a team that wants to win. Good luck, Shedeur, and say hello to your wonderful father.
I'm sorry, but that has when your father is great, that has nothing to do with your skill set.
Did Deion send word to Trump to please send out a social media post? Is that what happened?
I think Trump just wanted to get into the mix. You know what? This is probably the biggest story of the time at the moment. So why not put your 2 cents in? Because Trump loves football. That's an obvious thing. So he probably had some understanding of what was going on. But I hate the fact because your dad is good, you're great. Also, that just doesn't. That's
Can
not
somebody
true.
also explain to me how this was supposedly racist? Because that's
God,
that was one of the
no
narratives.
Idea.
People said this was racist. I'm like, are you kidding? Because how many?
80%.
I was going to say how many black college students, players, had been drafted in rounds 1 through 5.
The first pick was black.
Black
quarterback. Was a black quarterback.
Was Shedeur and Deion out there saying it was racist?
No, it was everyone else. It was that guy that was George. He was a basketball player, but George Floyd's confidant.
Oh, whatever.
He was smoking weed on Twitter or X and just saying how racist this was, and I'm like.
And Stephen A. Smith has also implied that.
Yeah.
Well, Stephen A. Smith came out, and I didn't pull the audio, but Stephen A. Smith actually, one of the things that he also said was what we were talking about, that Deion Sanders is a force to deal with, a force to contend with. So when you look at how you're trying to build the nucleus of your team, do you really want the distraction of a Shedeur Sanders and a Deion Sanders?
Yeah, all that drama.
This is why you do interviews with the players. This is why you do. This is exactly the reason there's press conferences, there's interviews, there's this whole thing before the draft, so you know what you're getting.
Yep. That's exactly right.
At least somewhat, because
but,
you never know.
I will say though, I was I thought that I'm sure, Dan, you're aware of the prank that was pulled on.
Yeah, somebody called
Shedeur Sanders.
What round was it? 2 or 3?
Yeah, I think second or third round. And some bozo who is the son of an Atlanta Falcons coach saw a phone number that belonged to Shedeur and passed it along to a buddy, and they called him pretending to be Mickey Loomis, the GM of the New Orleans Saints, telling him that, hey, we drafted you, buddy. I'm sorry, man.
That's messed up.
And then you're an idiot and record it yourself.
You record yourself doing it.
Yeah, you put it on social
you
media.
Idiot.
So what happened? So
they got he had the son publicly apologized. Yeah. Obviously, that means nothing because you're the idiot that posted it.
Yeah.
That's and it happened to other kids too, not just Shedeur. I think 2 other players. One was undrafted and got a fake call in like the 5th round, and another one got called in the 1st round. Like this has been happening, and that's such a line you don't cross when a kid's life is about to change and you're messing with them. Like he could easily missed a phone call from a team drafting him if another kid is pranking him. Like there's so many things you don't.
That's
one
just today's TikTok culture. Let's do something outrageous so we can post it on social media.
Now, here's my question though. Do people really think that was funny? They just because the guy is Shedeur Sanders and Dion. They're not necessarily well liked by a lot of folks.
People were on their side after that.
Were they
call. After that, they were like, "Come on, we're giving them a hard time, sure, but there's some. This is just not. This is not cool. This is a kid's life. You're
crossing the line big time."
2133 says that prank was awesome. It was a dose of humble pie.
Yeah, but
I'm not. Yeah.
And by the way,
he was already getting that humble pie by not being picked.
And by the way, 4612 says this about the whole racism issue. It's not about the pick. It was about this perception of loud, outspoken black men being a threat. I don't see it like that though. It's about team cohesion and having to deal with all of that drama, whether it is a loud, outspoken black man or a loud, outspoken white man. I mean, they just don't need to deal with that kind of a distraction because everybody knows if you know anything about sports, and I know some. But nobody wants a distraction. I mean, look at what's his nuts? What's his name over there? Sorry, what's his name?
Oh, what a great aneurysm!
So great that nobody listens in the 5 o'clock hour.
Oh, I'm gonna pull that.
San Francisco 49ers.
Colin Kaepernick. Yeah,
I mean that's a perfect example. And so he wasn't very good. You know what? Here's I think you said it, KGB. Is the juice worth the squeeze? If Shedeur is good enough,
yes,
to justify all of the pain in the butt,
if he's
going to
great,
bring,
then the attitude's no issue.
Right.
If he helps wins games, there's no issue. But if you're not as good as your mouth says, then there's the issue.
Well, and you're a rookie for crying out loud. You're not a proven professional that people can look at your record and maybe put up with some of the nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
But, some brash kid coming in, and I can only imagine how a lot of the veterans on a team would take the guy.
Yeah.
It's like, son, shut up and sit down.
2205, people call him cocky, but I see confidence. And why is it bad that his dad is trying to help his kid succeed?
Well, this reminds me of so Archie Manning, the Mannings had this issue as well. When Eli Manning first got in the draft, his dad was like, he's not going to play for San Diego, who had the first pick. And it led to this whole thing of trades and that kind of thing. And it left a sour taste in everyone's mouths because how dare you say you refuse to play for someone when you're not even played a snap in the NFL?
Yep.
Fortunately, Manning won a couple Super Bowls, but he's still it's just one of those things of you're not a grizzled veteran to refuse something like that. When you're going into the draft, you should be on your hands and knees thanking God for the opportunity. And some have that mindset of I'm above some things.
Can we talk about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductees? Jay, have you heard this?
No, I mean, I saw the headline, but frankly, I have not. All right, so I've not seen the list.
Here's the inductees. You ready? Bad Company.
Okay.
Chubby Checker.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Joe Cocker.
Absolutely.
Outkast. Soundgarden. The White Stripes.
Yeah.
And
Jack White's a little bit of a nutcase.
And Cyndi Lauper.
Cyndi Lauper.
What's your attitude with Cyndi Lauper?
I don't get it. I just, number one, obviously she's not rock and roll, but whatever.
She was huge in the 80s.
She had one hit.
Yeah, but she led MTV.
Actually, two. Girls like to have fun and time after time. Yeah. And that's it. I mean, I don't know. Was she influential?
Well, yeah.
I can't imagine Cyndi Lauper was influential. We're here in Music City, so I mean, super text line is open, 615-737-9986. Let's go to the phones. Did Cyndi Lauper deserve to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? I believe that is silly. But the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, number one, is clearly not about rock and roll.
No. I mean, they put Dolly in there.
They put Dolly.
It's about musical influence more than anything.
Dolly was very influential.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
Dolly was influential. Yeah. But was Cyndi Lauper? No.
Well, in the 80s, again, you're gonna this gonna seem pretty out there, but when the wrestling boom of the 80s, like the rock and wrestling connection, that was like the biggest thing in the 80s. She was a huge part of that. And she was one of the reasons like WrestleMania took off in what it is today, because she started there with like the first one. And she was friends with Hulk Hogan and Roddy Piper and all these people. And she was a huge influence in the wrestling boom that like basically made Hulk Hogan into a megastar.
Did she influence music? I don't think there were.
She used her music to influence like pop culture.
I don't think. I don't think she deserves to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Hey, real quick, and I mean real quick. I don't even know if I have time to do this now. Fashion faux pas from Donald Trump. So over the weekend, I don't know if you guys saw this, but you had all of these media outlets, including the New York Times, and they were attacking Donald Trump for wearing a blue suit and a blue tie to the Pope's funeral. And, I mean, it was like wildfire. Donald Trump in this picture where he is standing with others who are wearing a black tie and a black suit and so forth. And there's Donald Trump in a blue suit and a blue tie. And you've got all these media outlets that are saying, oh, this is, breaking of presidential protocol. He stands out like a sore thumb, snubbing the nose at, the Pope and all that kind of stuff, the Catholic Church. Well, when you look at the photo of all of the other people that were at this event, the Pope's funeral, there's all kinds of people wearing blue ties. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, Joe Biden wore a blue tie. Joe Biden wore a blue tie.
Zelensky wore fatigues, for crying out loud.
Well, nobody expects much from Zelensky, let's be honest.
Even at a funeral, man, come on.
So, I mean, it did blow up in their face because, again, then you see that there were all kinds of other people out there that were also wearing blue. So I think that the smear campaign against Donald Trump, I don't think that it's ever going to end.
No, of course not.
I saw that whole thing, and I thought that that whole thing was rather lame. Trump was there. And by the way, Trump had a very clearly, it looked like a heartfelt one-on-one with Vladimir Zelensky. And that is where we will pick up the conversation after the news at 6 o'clock right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. By the way, watch us, if you would, on YouTube. You can watch the radio show on YouTube, 997WTN.com, Facebook and X as well. You can listen on the radio, 997WTN.com, and also on the radio, 99.7 and whatever, everywhere you can stream. What is the Daily Dan poll today?
Yeah, do you believe that peace deal is worth Ukraine giving up land to Russia?
Yes, so that's the question, is do you care? I mean, clearly, Zelensky is going to have to give up this land, including Crimea officially, if there's going to be any kind of a peace deal. Do you believe that it is worth it? The super text line is open right now, 615-737-9986. That is also the poll at YouTube. Like and subscribe to the channel. So what are people saying on YouTube?
Right now, 85% say yes. They do believe that is necessary, and it needs to, well, maybe not need to happen, but it's going to be one of those things.
That's where I'm at, too. Just get the damn thing done. Jay, what's coming up in the news at 6?
Well, Dan, another attack in the Red Sea, and 3 people who perished in a Tennessee plane crash over the weekend. They've been identified. We'll have those stories coming up at 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
5:59, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 89.7 WTN. Okay, so we all no doubt have seen what people are calling an iconic photo between with Donald Trump and Vladimir Zelensky. Ultimately, will it lead to peace? And it does seem like Trump is shifting his ire towards Vladimir Putin. We're going to talk about that. Also, James Carafano from the Heritage Foundation. He's going to join us for a foreign policy update. That and a whole lot more straight ahead. It is Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Good morning and happy Monday. I'm Jay Harper. At 6 o'clock, I've got your top stories. We'll also have a weather forecast and a traffic report coming up. In the Middle East, another reported attack in the Red Sea.
U.S. airstrike on Houthi rebels in Yemen has reportedly killed at least 68 African migrants. That's according to the Houthis' TV channel, which claims a detection center was bombed. U.S. officials did not comment overnight, but earlier U.S. Central Command said American forces have hit more than 800 Houthi targets since last month.
Back here in Tennessee, officials have identified the 3 people who died following a plane crash in White County over the weekend. According to the Federal Aviation Administration, a small aircraft with 3 people aboard crashed around noon on Saturday. Dean Selby, who is the Upper Cumberland Regional Airport Director, confirmed to WKRN that all 3 occupants died as a result of the single-engine crash, which happened about a mile south of the airport. Selby also told News 2 the individuals who died have been identified as the pilot, Jonathan Braun, along with 2 passengers from Alabama, a husband and wife, Dylan Clay Davis, and his wife, Kelsey. No cause for the crash has been announced. We now turn to this morning's market numbers report brought to you by Beacon Capital Management. They can be found online at beaconcm.com.
Stock futures point to a lower opening as traders wait for some key reports on the economy. The so-called Magnificent Seven, including Meta, Microsoft, and Apple, all report their quarterly earnings this week. The major stock indexes rounded out a down week with slight gains on Friday. The Dow Jones picked up 20 points to finish the trading week slightly above 40,000. The S&P rose 0.75%. The Nasdaq Composite added 1.25%. China is reportedly easing some of its tariffs on American goods. The Wall Street Journal says Beijing is quietly waiving most of the 125% tariffs on some imports, including medical products, aviation parts, and equipment to make computer chips. With proms, weddings, and Mother's Day looming, the nation's florists have another concern: tariffs. Colombia, Canada, and Ecuador are all leading suppliers of flowers to the U.S. Those countries now face tariffs from the Trump administration.
Now let's take a look at the stock futures before the opening bell. The Dow down 72, the S&P down 50.5, the Nasdaq down 52.5. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather are next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News. Well, we have a couple of crashes, but they've been moved out of the roadways. But still, you should be aware if you're in the area. Dickerson Pike at Doverside Drive, they've pushed this crash over into a Walmart parking lot. Also, Gallatin Pike South, just south of Due West Avenue, an injury accident there, and they have pushed that into a business parking lot as well. But still, there are emergency vehicles in the area. We've got your traffic every 10 minutes, every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.607 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Welcome on in to your Monday. Feels like a Monday. It is April 28th of 2025, and hope you are doing well. There is a lot of news, and by the way, James Carafano is going to be joining us at 6:38 here on Nashville's Morning News to talk about all things China, all things Ukraine and Russia. There is a lot going on. Iconic photo of Donald Trump and Vladimir Zelensky. He is there at the Pope's funeral. And I thought it was interesting. They're in this massive room. Maybe you've seen it. They're in this massive room. And there is Trump and Zelensky. And there's two chairs, no other furniture around. And they're just sitting there, basically knee to knee talking. And they're trying to hammer out some sort of a deal. It was a huge picture over the weekend. And for a lot of folks, they assumed that part of what is going on is Trump is using the Pope's funeral as an opportunity to just get with Zelensky. Last time these two had spoken, at least in person, was that rather ill-fated White House meeting where you had Marco Rubio and you had J.D. Vance and Trump and Zelensky when they all got into that fight. And so this was the first time that the two had spoken. Now, you had a lot going on. And now we all know the lead up to what was going on between Zelensky and Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump. Trump last week was basically calling out Zelensky and saying that he didn't want to stop the war. I want to play some audio for you.
How iconic that setting, that scene, that meeting is going to go down in the history books for President Trump to be a president of peace, to be talking peace and diplomacy in the Vatican of all places.
Yeah, everybody was talking about this photograph. Now, this was a sign, at least to me, I'm looking at this, and I think this was a sign to Vladimir Putin that Donald Trump isn't above sitting down one-on-one. And I think that Putin saw this, and it probably, for Putin, was a little alarming because he knows that right now, or at least up until this photo, that really Trump was talking about how Putin was the one that really wanted peace and Zelensky was the guy in the way. Now, remember what I said last week, which was what is really going on is that Putin simply will not, he's demanding things that can never be agreed to. And Zelensky is the one that is more vocal about his displeasure at how these negotiations are going. But, you know, Putin is just sitting back and he says, well, I'm not going to agree to give up any land. I'm not going to agree to be sent to a criminal court. These are all things that Zelensky is demanding. And so Putin has just been bombing away, and that's been ticking off not only Zelensky, but also Donald Trump. And so Trump sits down with Zelensky, and they had this one-on-one conversation. And this photograph, iconic, a lot of people saying. Trump has been blasting Zelensky for blowing up any deal by saying the terms were all non-starters. It feels like now the tables have turned. And Trump posted over the weekend, it is Russia who does not want a deal. So the tables have turned. And we know that Donald Trump, his alliances can change with, in a nanosecond. So now he was asked when he got back home about that meeting and his message to Vladimir Putin. This is what Donald Trump had to say.
Well, I want him to stop shooting, sit down, and sign a deal. We have the confines of a deal, I believe, and I want him to sign it and be done with it and just go back to life.
Yeah, remember one of the big stories out, this was Friday, it was about how Donald Trump had been frustrated over the lack of progress, the lack of a deal, the lack of either side willing to negotiate. And when you look at what both sides are demanding, there really is, it doesn't feel like anyway, that there is any real middle ground. And so there's a long way to go. Donald Trump obviously wants peace.
Both sides have to want that. He's expressed his frustration with both sides, but yet his determination. And if you go back to, we're 100 days in, just 100 days ago, Biden and his team had no end in sight. This was an endless war. This was a meat grinder of men and material and national treasure that really he had never defined victory. And President Trump is determined to use diplomacy to bring this war to an end, to talk to both sides. And just in 100 days, we've had multiple rounds.
By the way, that was with Maria Bartiromo. Michael Waltz, Trump's national security advisor, and he is right in the mix. And so, yes, Vladimir Putin had been bombing civilian areas in Ukraine. Trump posting on Truth Social that he thought Putin might be stringing him along. This is what Trump wrote on Truth Social. I'm trying to just clean up the mess that was left to me by Obama and Biden, and what a mess it is. With all of that being said, there was no reason for Vladimir Putin to be shooting missiles into these civilian areas, cities and towns over the last few days, which we've been reporting that. It makes me think that maybe Putin doesn't want to stop this war. He's just, he says, tapping me along, stringing me along, and has to be dealt with differently. Though banking, he says, through banking or secondary sanctions. Too many people are dying. So Trump now believes that Vladimir Putin maybe, I know that I've spoken about, we've all talked about this, about how Putin, it feels like he has been stringing Trump along because, as I said on Friday, there are things going on that Putin is demanding things that Zelensky simply will not agree to, and Zelensky is demanding things that Putin will never agree to. But again, Zelensky is the one that has been more vocal about it, and that has been raising the ire of Donald Trump, who was asked about Crimea over the weekend.
Is Zelensky ready to give up Crimea, do you think, Mr. President? Oh, I think so, yeah. Look, Crimea was 12 years ago. That was President Obama. They gave it up without a shot being fired. So don't talk to me about Crimea. Talk to Obama and Biden about Crimea.
Yeah, the president also said Zelensky asked for more weapons. And Trump said, we'll see what happens with respect to Russia. I can't imagine Trump would approve more weapons or more money going to Ukraine. I mean, I understand if we're close to a deal, then I would understand, okay, we're going to get through the next month. Here's some weaponry for the next month. But that would be a complete U-turn from what Donald Trump has been saying really since this war began, which is no more weapons and no more money for Ukraine. And now Zelensky in this, knee-to-knee meeting with Donald Trump, Trump is saying that he was asking for more weaponry. And again, Trump is saying we'll see what happens with respect to Russia. By the way, Waltz also says that Ukraine mineral deal, remember that whole minerals deal that we had with Ukraine, is going to get done as well. Marco Rubio was interviewed by Kirsten Welker over the weekend, and he talked about possible sanctions against Russia. And what Rubio said was actually pretty poignant. We're going to talk about that and a whole lot more straight ahead. It is 6:15. Time to check the roads on WTN. .616 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. As far as your weather for today, it's going to be 88 degrees and partly cloudy. We do have thunderstorms expected through Thursday. And so you want to stay close for your complete forecast coming up at 6:30 here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So everybody wants to know, are we close to a deal with Vladimir Putin and Zelensky? I don't believe that we are. We'll see what James Carafano has to say here coming up. But Marco Rubio, of course, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, he was on with Kirsten Welker over the weekend, and people are asking. And Welker asked about sanctions against Russia because, as Donald Trump says, maybe what we need to do in dealing with Russia is to implement sanctions. Now, remember that it was Biden who tried to implement and did implement sanctions against Russia, but they were really, really weak sanctions. And so now, at this point, should we even bother to implement sanctions if we do against Russia because they keep bombing Ukraine and Trump doesn't feel like they are negotiating in good faith? And so now the pressure's on President Trump to start sanctioning Russia. This is what Marco Rubio had to say about that. And this was over the weekend.
Given the frustrations that he is voicing, Mr. Secretary, why hasn't he imposed sanctions yet?
Well, because I think we're still hoping to see that this effort works out in diplomacy and that we can bring these two sides closer together. I mean, the minute you start doing that kind of stuff, you're walking away from it. You've now doomed yourself to another 2 years of war, and we don't want to see it happen. I think what's important and really weighs is there is no other country. There is no other institution or organization on the earth that can bring these two sides together. No one else is talking to both sides but us. And no one else in the world can make something like this happen but the president. This is a very significant responsibility and a really important opportunity. And we want to make sure that we work it all the way through, that we don't walk away from something that can actually work or that can actually lead to peace. But we also don't want to continue to spend time on something that's not going to get us there. So throughout this process, it's about determining, do both sides really want peace, and how close are they or how far apart they are after 90 days of effort here, over 90 days of effort. That's what we're trying to determine this week. There are reasons to be optimistic, and there are also reasons to be concerned. It's complicated. If this was an easy war to end, it would have been ended by someone else a long time ago. But right now, the only one who can bring these two sides together to end this war is our president, President Trump, and we're doing everything we can to see if we can get that done here over the next few days.
All right, so we'll have to see what happens with this. I hope that I'm wrong. I truly hope that I'm wrong. I just don't see anything happening here in the next couple of months. But again, with Trump, you never know. By the way, other news just very quickly. Headline from CNN. We talked about this on Friday as far as the tariffs goes. China is still out there saying, we have not spoken to Donald Trump or his team. Trump and his team are saying, yes, we are having conversations with China. It's kind of surprising. And I've got some audio from Scott Bessent on all this, Treasury Secretary. He was on all the talk shows over the weekend. But the question about China and what do we do about China? I was hearing Jay talk about the futures in the previous newscast. The futures, it looks like they're down today. We may, who knows, have a tough day on Wall Street today. But that's one of the big questions. Okay, so are we or are we not talking about tariffs and negotiating with China? Yes or no? Trump's team says we are. China says we're not. But I really liked what Scott Bessent had to say about the tariffs and where we are with all of these negotiations. I've got that story for you and a whole lot more straight ahead. It is Nashville's Morning News for a Monday on Super Talk 99.7. Jay Harper's in the WTN Newsroom. Jay, what's coming up at 6:30?
Yes, sir, Dan. A hit and run off the waters off the Florida coast. We'll have the latest. Also, potentially good news for home buyers. And a would-be robber messed with the wrong Nashville store. We'll have those stories for you at the bottom of the hour on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.621 Nashville's Morning News. Guys over 40, if you're running low on energy, maybe you're just feeling off. LowTCenter.com is where you need to go today. Now get started with testosterone replacement therapy, or TRT, and join lots of guys who are going through the same thing as you. Now, you know that they've got clinics all over Nashville, and yes, they are really easy to get to. You walk in, you see a real medical provider, and you get that energy back. No complicated process, just results. And remember, these treatment plans, they are tailor-made just for you. You can always get treatments at the clinic, or you can be treated at home. But either way, you're always going to get the highest quality of care. Now, here in the month of April, you can get a free consultation, and if you qualify, treatment is covered by most major insurance. So reclaim that energy and become you again. By the way, they can also help with prescription weight loss options as well. So head on over to lowtcenter.com and book your appointment today. That is lowtcenter.com. Simple, quick, and totally worth it. Dan Mandis here, and friends, if you own a BMW, an Audi, a Mercedes-Benz, a Porsche, any other European car, listen up, because I've got great news. There is a new place to get your vehicle service. They're called Renstall. Now, Renstall offers the best technicians, the latest and greatest diagnostic equipment, and yes, they are dedicated to customer service. Now, this is a dealer-level service, but family-level care and honest pricing. It's not a corporate mindset. I've actually met with the owners. They are amazing. This is a family business helping out our neighbors and friends by delivering honesty, respect, and yes, exceptional service as well. Renstall also, by the way, proudly offers the Heroes Service discount. Veterans, active duty military, first responders, and emergency medical personnel all get a 10% discount on all repairs. By the way, listen to this. They also offer complimentary shuttle service, free Uber rides as well, immediate appointments, and yes, a quick turnaround too. And by the way, the other thing that I can appreciate is the Renstall guarantee. They'll offer clear and honest pricing, and no unnecessary repairs ever. Now, Rentstall, they're not opening yet. They are opening soon. They are opening soon, and yes, they're accepting appointments for the month of May. Conveniently located across the street from the Academy of Country Music and 5 minutes from Music Row and 2 minutes from downtown, and conveniently located directly across the street from the Academy of Country Music and Live Nation. Check out their website. I love this website. You know what it's called? itrustmymechanic.com. Rentstall. itrustmymechanic.com. Check them out. The phone number is 615-777-7100. 615-777-7100. itrustmymechanic.com. .627, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. You know they had the whole nerd prom over the weekend, right? The White House Correspondents' Dinner. And they called it a low-wattage affair. And as you can imagine, it was full of self-importance. It was full of narcissism and a healthy dose of hypocrisy.
The lion's share of tonight's program will focus on excellence from across the beat. The best of us who sacrifice everything to ensure the public has the access to hear, see, and know what is going on with their elected leaders.
Right. Now, anybody who has paid attention to the news over the last 4 years know how ridiculous the White House Correspondents Association president Eugene Daniels, who clearly is lying when he talks about how it is their job to let the American people know what is going on with their elected leaders. I mean, they said that. And the only thing that I could think of is, really, where were you the last 4 years on Joe Biden? So when I say it was full of hypocrisy and lying and absolutely tone deaf, it really was. Now, one of the things we called it a low wattage affair is really downbeat and sort of downtrodden. One of the reasons why is because they didn't have any comedian there like they usually do. Well, you know, that's why it was low wattage. Well, the reason why they didn't have a comedian there is because, you know, they had one, but then remember, it turns out that she said this about Donald Trump.
You're kind of a bunch of murderers.
Remember that? And this?
Do you want him to be there this year?
No, no one wants that. I don't know that anyone's looking forward to being in the same room as him.
So Trump, of course, not feeling very welcome. And so they had to fire the comedian that was supposed to be there. And so while they're sitting there, and I've got a whole bunch more audio on this because I do think that it is an important topic because it is the media. But one thing that I really took away from with some of the speeches is that they really haven't learned a whole heck of a lot as to why it is that the American people have so little trust in them. They're right there with Congress on whether or not the media, the news media, has any credibility whatsoever. Got a lot more straight ahead. It is Nashville's Morning News, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Good morning. It is 6:30. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. A complete look at your forecast and a traffic report are upcoming in mere moments. One person is dead, several more injured after a hit and run off the Florida Gulf Coast. ABC's Jim Ryan says a yacht apparently slammed into a ferry and then took off.
Police say 45 people were aboard the ferry coming back from a festival when the boat was ran by a second one.
You never expect any of this to happen.
Brenda Alvarez was with her husband and 2 young children.
We can understand how fast they were going, like how that is even logically possible, that they hit and were able to just get off like that.
One of her fellow passengers was killed, a dozen were hurt, some seriously. Police later found the yacht, and they're questioning those who were on board.
Things may be looking up for home buyers this spring. We hear now from ABC's Wayne Cabot.
Mortgage rates are more than double what they were in 2021, and yet realtors say more sellers are listing, giving buyers more options. The National Association of Realtors says the number of homes for sale increased almost 20% last month from a year ago. And here's a change. 44% of home purchases now involve some concession from the seller, according to Redfin. Big question is, as always, if and when the Fed will lower interest rates.
Back here in Nashville, a man is arrested after attempting to steal thousands of dollars worth of merchandise from a jewelry store in the Hillsborough West End area. Employees at Swarovski Jewelers, they locked a guy inside on Friday after the store manager reportedly saw him put about an $8,000 pendant in his sleeve as he was helping this guy. Well, police said the man then pulled out a gun, pointed it at the manager's head while threatening the staff. But one of the staff snuck behind the guy, took his gun away, threw him to the ground, and held him until the cops got there. Police identified the man as 40-year-old Joshua Calvo. They searched him and found more stolen jewelry from the store. Also, the gun that Calvin used, it was stolen. After a search of Calvo's car, police also found almost 130 grams of crack cocaine and about 125 grams of fentanyl. He's now facing numerous charges. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather are next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Thank you, Jay. Dan Mandis here. Listen, friends, if you're starting to worry about Mother's Day, man, the clock is ticking. You know, it is coming up. May 11th is Mother's Day. Now, if you don't know what to get Mom, think about an incredible and transformative facial from my friends at Contours. Now, they are famous for their ultra slim technology, of course, that stimulates collagen and does tighten the skin. And with a facial, that's going to help those fine lines and those age spots fade. And by the way, they've got a special right now from Contours just for the mom in your life. It can be for mom. It can be for your wife. It can be for your sister. It can be the mom in your life, whoever it may be. Right now, they're offering a huge discount. You can get a facial and a belly buster treatment for just $199. Again, that is a facial and a belly buster treatment. Only $199 for the first 5 callers right now, 615-236-9960. They've got operators standing by. You can also find them, by the way, at contoursllc.com, 615-236-9960. Don't forget that great deal right now. First 5 callers, you get a facial and a belly buster treatment for just $199. So whether Contours Red Light technology is helping you lose inches in your belly or lines on your face, you are going to see results. And again, don't forget that great Mother's Day special. That phone number, 615-236-9960, contoursllc.com. 6:35 Nashville's Morning News. Dan Mandis here, giving you the update on one of my favorite parties of the year, the Glock Store's 5th annual open house. That is starting, and that is going to happen on Saturday, May 31st. Now, every year, they throw open the doors at the Glock Store. They welcome all of Nashville to come join the fun. They have incredible vendors. The open house, it is famous for their incredible raffles, and this year, they'll be nonstop, all day long, giving you the best chance ever to win some really great gear, including a custom Glock handgun. And by the way, even if you don't win a raffle, there will be incredible deals on all things Glock, including, by the way, Glocks. Deals so good, you'll just have to be there to believe them. Just one is a great deal on Burrow bullets. They've got a Burrow bullet blowout, as a matter of fact. 9mm and .223 in 1,000-round tac packs and in Burrow bullet ammo boxes. You're not going to believe the price. You've got to check them out. Details on their 5th annual open house at the Glock Store, shoot270.com. Find them, shoot270.com, and also glockstore.com.
That crash that occurred a little earlier, 65 southbound at Trinity Lane, it's been moved over to the shoulder, but it is causing delays there. Also, an injury crash reported now, 8th Avenue South, just north of Barry Road, and we are seeing some congestion now coming down from 65 down toward Vietnam Veterans Boulevard as you head toward Goodlettsville, so prepare for that. We've got your traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.637, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Always great to have James Carafano, foreign policy military analyst with the Heritage Foundation, joining us. James, always great to speak to you. Of course, over the weekend, iconic photo of President Trump and Vladimir Zelensky, and they are at the Pope's funeral. But, I mean, it's 2 chairs, 2 men, 2 leaders in the middle of this large room, and President Trump seems to be, at least to me, playing both sides right now in the sense that last week he blasted Zelensky, saying that he was the one standing in the way of a peace deal. Now, after that conversation with Zelensky, Trump now says it is Vladimir Putin. What do you think of this weekend's latest developments?
Yeah, it says a lot about our president. For people who get wrapped up in these kind of caricatures of who he is and how he responds, fundamentally what drives Trump's vision and execution on foreign policy is America's interest. And he always puts that ahead of his own personal interests and prejudice. I don't think there's any secret that Zelensky's attitude in the White House in that meeting that they had was completely unacceptable. And it really angered the president, who really felt the United States was putting out a lot for the people of Ukraine. And he personally had invested a lot in trying to get a peace deal to prevent Zelensky's people from dying in the streets of Kyiv and other places. What we saw over the weekend in that meeting with Zelensky was a president of the United States who was willing to put the interests of his people first and put the personal animosities and issues aside, and even the slings and arrows thrown at him. And I think we also saw that from Zelensky, a leader who said, how people treat me, how I'm perceived in the public, that's not as important as delivering for the people of the United States. I mean, you saw those 2 leaders sitting there knee to knee in the Vatican. I think you really saw a picture of what leadership is all about. And I'll tell you, the one person not in that picture is Vladimir Putin. And the one thing I can absolutely tell you, regardless of what you think about Ukraine and Russia and the U.S. and the war, whatever else, is Vladimir Putin is not a leader who in his heart cares about the people of Russia. Their aspirations, their suffering, their sacrifices. He cares about holding on to power and keeping power and his own image of the Russia that he has in his head. I mean, there's no difference from somebody like Vladimir Putin and Tony Soprano, and how he, doesn't care about the mafia. He doesn't care about New Jersey. He cares about him, right? And so I think that photo will be one of the iconic photos of this century.
Some folks have said that Vladimir Putin, James Carafano, by the way, with the Heritage Foundation joining us, some folks, James, have said that Putin actually does not want this war to end. He likes seeing the United States and Europe in disarray and fighting amongst ourselves and all this, not to mention America spending all of that money on the war, and of course, the military equipment that we're sending off to Ukraine as well, because it weakens us as a nation. What do you think about that notion?
Well, I think it's a pretty simplistic and naive way to analyze things. If you don't like U.S. policy and what's going on in the world, it's easy to come up with a rationale that fits that. But I mean, if you look objectively at where Vladimir Putin expected to be today, he expected NATO to fall apart. He expected to reestablish a hard sphere of influence. He expected control over Eastern Europe in the way he had during the Cold War. He is very, very far from that. And to say that there are lots of things that are slowing the United States down: an open border that was letting in millions of people, an unsustainable national debt, and a feckless foreign policy. Donald Trump's fixed all those, including Ukraine. I look, when people say we're just throwing money at Ukraine with no plan, I completely agree with that. But you can't say Donald Trump doesn't have a plan, and you can't say that Donald Trump's plan for Ukraine doesn't put America first and American interests first.
Let me ask you, because one of the things that Donald Trump said was that during that meeting between Zelensky and Trump, that Zelensky had asked for more weaponry. What do you think about that? And should Donald Trump, who all this time has been saying that we shouldn't be involved in this war and so on and so forth, how do you think Trump will respond to that request?
Well, I think we're past the age when Ukraine is essentially a welfare state. We already have seen Ukraine defense industry go from $1 billion a year to $15 billion a year. We've seen people open up Russian access to Russian Russian money that was held in the West. We see the Europeans doing a lot more. I think the age of Ukraine as a gravy train is over. I think if there are more military support from the United States, it's going to be more in the form of recent loans and contractual things. So the notion that somehow Ukraine is going to drain the U.S. military arsenal, which, by the way, if there's another way to look at this, you could say thank you, Vladimir Putin. And you could say thank you to Xi as well. What we had been doing for decades, neglecting the capacity to defend our own country, was unthinkable, and it was thinkable because people did it. It was unforgivable, and many of us who were saying, we can't do this. We can't fight wars with no bullets to put in the gun, with no missiles to fire from the launchers. That we are strangling our capacity to defend ourselves. And even as defense budgets were going up, we were actually producing less and less, and this had to stop. And it took, I think, the shock of the war in Ukraine and the threat to Taiwan to get people to realize that peace through strength, it's like saying, I believe in peace through strength, but I never want to go to the gym. I never want to work out. I never want to do the work. And you can't do that. But you also can't just spend your way into security. So getting serious about fiscal responsibility, getting the fraud and waste out of the Pentagon, say if somebody's going to be in the ranks, they actually have to be fit and be able to serve. Fixing all those, it's the whole package. And here's the difference. Biden was like, you go to the doctor and the doctor says, here, take a pill. Okay, that's easy. Now, the pill doesn't solve any of the problems. You don't get better, and the pill's actually quite expensive, and you're going more in debt. Donald Trump comes in and says, do the work. Get a nutritionist. Work out. Eat healthy. Be serious about taking care of yourself. And you know what? You will be better. And America's going through now is essentially a wake-up call on who we are, whether it's our our physical well-being, our security, our economic well-being, or even our spiritual well-being. And Donald Trump has told one thing to the American people: put in the work, dude. You put in the work, and you will get the results. It sounds like a commercial for Gold's Gym or something.
But you make a lot of sense. James Carafano is joining us. Coming up, James, I got to check traffic real quick. But coming up, I want to talk about the main sticking point. There's a couple between Russia and Ukraine. And are these problems actually solvable? 6:46. Time to check the roads on WTN. Weather today, a high of 88, partly cloudy. Thunderstorms expected Tuesday through Thursday. Appreciate you listening to Nashville's Morning News. James Carafano joining us. James, okay, so you've got Putin, who clearly is not going to give up Crimea. You've got Zelensky, who says he will not sign on to anything that involves, I don't know, officially giving away or acknowledging Crimea as, Russian-controlled land. I mean, that's just one of several sticking points. Is there any room to compromise here?
Well, I mean, the compromise on the deal is there's lots of precedent for that. Matter of fact, we see this today actually in Georgia and Moldova. We saw it in parts of Europe after World War II, which is you acknowledge the occupation, but you also commit that you won't militarily try to recover your land. That's the standard deal. I imagine that's where we're wind up in the end. Look, people ask me about this all the time. I said, look, there's three scenarios here. Putin can say whatever he wants. He actually needs a deal. He's not in good shape at all. And so a strategic pause for him is actually greatly beneficial. So you could hear all this bluster from Putin, and then tomorrow you can pick up the phone and say, yeah, we have a deal. Because it's very Russian to say you want everything and you're not going to budge and then cut a deal. So that could happen. On the other hand, Putin could decide, you know what, I want to fight another year. You know, he maybe sides with some of the critics that you mentioned. The West will fall apart. The United States will bankrupt itself. I'll take that bet. You know, what do I have to lose? A couple more dead North Koreans and some more dead Russians? What's the problem there? So if he does that, the question is what does Donald Trump do, who's put himself into this peace deal? He could completely walk away, which I think we've already seen signs he's not going to do that, because that would make Trump look weak, and if we wound up with a disaster in another Afghanistan, that would cripple his administration for the rest of his term. The more likely scenario, quite honestly, is the United States will continue to support Ukraine. Now, does that mean we're going to get into the war? No. Does it mean we're going to start World War III? No. Does it mean that the American soldiers are going to be on the ground in Ukraine? No. Does it mean that that's a heavy lift for us? Probably not, because the Europeans are doing more. Ukraine's going to rebuild the country. They have frozen Russian assets. So it's a very, very doable lift for the United States. And in concert with all the other things that Trump is doing to Russia, including dropping the price of oil and other things, it's just going to make life worse for the Russians.
Well,
so
yeah. In the news today, James, is the conversation about whether or not Trump will place any sanctions on Russia and Vladimir Putin because of all of this, because clearly Trump is now, his ire has gone towards Vladimir Putin. And it was weak sanctions by Joe Biden that sort of emboldened Putin to go in. So how hard do these sanctions have to be?
Well, again, that's kind of up to Putin. You know, only Putin, I've said this many times, Putin has lost this war. I mean, his goal was to conquer Ukraine, humiliate the West, have NATO fall apart, have America leave Europe. None of that's happened. But only Putin can decide when to end the war, because he's the one attacking. And this is why I've never been terribly sympathetic to the Ukrainian argument. Well, I have to take back all my land. First of all, they don't have a military that can take back all their land, so that's meaningless. And the second is are you any safer if you take back every inch of Ukrainian territory? No, because Putin could attack you whenever he wants. So it's really whether peace is in hand or not is really in Putin's hand. And this goes back to actually Donald Trump's original statement, I can stop the war in 24 hours, which is true. He could have stopped the war in 24 hours. But the caveat that none of us ever talked about is if both sides wanted the war to stop. And it's very, very clear I mean, again, think what you want about Ukrainians, think what you want about the war, think about everything else. Ukraine is willing to sign a deal for the fighting to stop. And whether the fighting stops or not, that's up to Vladimir Putin.
All right, James Carafano, always a great conversation, and we look forward to having you on again soon, and great perspective as always. It is 6:51 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And Jay Harper is in for Joan Jones. And Jay, what's coming up at 7?
Yes, Dan, more on that deadly accident that happened off the Florida coast that left one person dead. Also, Canadian officials, they're trying to come up with a motive in that deadly car ramming up in Vancouver, Canada. We'll have those stories and more at 7 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.652 Nashville's Morning News. You know, the weather in Middle Tennessee can get crazy, which is why you need a backup home standby generator from my friends at the Generator Supercenter. Of course, the nation's #1 Generac generator dealer. Get a free quote and get peace of mind when you have one installed. Storms roll through, like we're going to see in the next couple of days, as a matter of fact. Storms roll through, and if the power is out in your neighborhood, your power is going to be back up thanks to your backup home standby generator from the Generator Supercenter. By the way, they do have expert installation, 24-hour monitoring as well. They're not going to leave you in the dark, friends. Financing is available. 615-879-1952. 615-879-1952. Generator Supercenter of Nashville.com. 6:58, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I got a couple of stories just real quick. So in Florida, they called this operation, I think they called it Operation Tidal Wave. ICE has arrested 800 illegal aliens on final deportation orders. So, and I'm just reading, and I don't have time to get into it now, but a lot of the heinous crimes that these guys have committed, either here in America or back in their home nation. One guy in Guatemala was being sought for homicide, for example. Others for, assault and these other things. So this is a very big deal. ICE arresting 800 illegal aliens in Florida. And also, you heard about Kristi Noem's handbag, her Gucci handbag that got stolen. Remember that whole thing? So what could be more perfect than Kristi Noem's highfalutin Gucci handbag being stolen by an illegal alien? That's right. She is, of course, as you know, Secretary of Homeland Security. Kristi Noem was dining with her family at the Capitol Burger in downtown Washington, D.C., when a guy in a medical mask was able to sneak off with her Gucci bag. She had $3,000 in cash, a makeup bag, her driver's license, passport, medication, apartment keys, and so forth. Mario Bustamante Leiva, 49, was arrested for the brazen theft, according to the New York Post. He had been living in the U.S. for years and is believed to be part of a wider robbery organization terrorizing the East Coast. He is Chilean. He is an illegal alien. And he stole the wrong purse.
I mean, how could he be more wrong than stealing that bag, of all bags?
Of all bags. I just don't know how that happened with all the Secret Service around her, but whatever.
That's happened more often nowadays.
It is 7 o'clock. By the way, Jonathan Fahey is going to be joining us, coming up next, talking about illegal immigration. Details straight ahead. It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Good morning. It's 7 a.m. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. Traffic and weather are on the way. Some breaking news this morning. Reuters, they're reporting that Russian President Vladimir Putin today declared a 3-day ceasefire in the war with Ukraine next month to mark the 80th anniversary of the victory of the Soviet Union and its allies in World War II. The Kremlin said the 72-hour ceasefire would run from the start of May 8th to the end of May 10th, and Russia called on Ukraine to join it as well. In the event of violations by the Ukrainian side, Russia's armed forces would give, quote, an adequate and effective response. That's according to the statement. Back here in the U.S., police on the Florida Gulf Coast are investigating the cause of a crash between two boats that turned deadly overnight. ABC's Victor Oquindo is in Miami.
Authorities saying at least one person on the Clearwater Ferry was killed after a collision with a privately owned boat, police calling it a hit and run. The ferry, carrying 45 people, including 2 crew members, came to a stop on a sandbar following the crash. Multiple trauma alerts called in. The other boat involved reportedly fled the scene before being identified by law enforcement.
Canadian officials are working around the clock to determine the motive in a deadly car ramming at a Filipino heritage festival in Vancouver over the weekend. ABC's Matt Gutman is in Vancouver and also stated that they are going to continue to work this case until they can get to the bottom of things. However, it has been reported that the person responsible did suffer from a number of mental issues over the years. Officials have identified the 3 people who died following a plane crash in White County here in Tennessee on Saturday. According to the FAA, a small aircraft with 3 people on board crashed around noon on Saturday. Dean Selby is the Upper Cumberland Regional Airport Director. He confirmed to Channel 2 that all 3 occupants died as a result of the single-engine plane crash, which happened about a mile south of the airport. Selby also told the station the individuals who passed had been identified as the pilot, Jonathan Braun, along with two passengers from Alabama, a husband and wife, Dylan Clay Davis, and his wife, Kelsey. No cause for the crash has been announced as of yet. The Market Numbers Report, it's brought to you by Beacon Capital Management. Find them online at beaconcm.com.
Stock futures point to a lower opening as traders wait for some key reports on the economy. The so-called Magnificent Seven, including Meta, Microsoft, and Apple, all report their quarterly earnings this week. The major stock indexes rounded out a down week with slight gains on Friday. The Dow Jones picked up 20 points to finish the trading week slightly above 40,000. The S&P rose 0.75%. The Nasdaq Composite added 1.25%. China is reportedly easing some of its tariffs on American goods. The Wall Street Journal says Beijing is quietly waiving most of the 125% tariffs on some imports, including medical products, aviation parts, and equipment to make computer chips. With proms, weddings, and Mother's Day looming, the nation's florists have another concern: tariffs. Colombia, Canada, and Ecuador are all leading suppliers of flowers to the U.S. Those countries now face tariffs from the Trump administration.
Stock futures before the opening bell. The Dow down 24, the S&P down 5, and the Nasdaq is down 21. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather are next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News. Three injury crashes reported in three separate parts of the metro. The first one, Church Street at 19th Avenue North in the Midtown section, down in Brentwood, Old Hickory Boulevard east of Cloverland Drive, and then in Laverne, Old Hickory Boulevard north of Saddle Creek Way. Another injury crash reported there. We've got your traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
7:07, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. There is a lot going on. Hope you're doing well, and welcome on in to your Monday, April 28th of 2025. New York Times report. You remember that Black Hawk helicopter that collided with that American Airlines flight in was it Washington, D.C.? Is that where it was, Washington, D.C.? It's either Washington, D.C. or New York. New York Times is now reporting there were multiple mistakes made leading up to that tragedy that took over 60 lives. Now, bottom line is, it looks like the pilot, the female pilot, just completely ignored not only the air traffic control tower, but also her co-pilot. Listen to this. The New York Times reports that there were multiple mistakes made. Not only was the Black Hawk flying too high, but in the final seconds before the crash, its pilot failed to heed a directive from her co-pilot, an Army flight instructor, to change course. The report also, because you've seen the video, and we talked about this video at the time, where you've got the helicopter and the American Airlines flight, and people were trying to figure out, did she do this on purpose? Did whoever was flying that Black Hawk helicopter, it's like the pilot just didn't slow down at all, didn't change course at all. It was just a straight line into the plane. And it didn't make sense to a lot of folks, by the way, including yours truly. New York Times reporting that it also puts blame on the air traffic controller for not being clear and urgent enough. However, Warrant Officer Andrew Eves, who was co-piloting and the instructor of Captain Rebecca Lobash, told her literally to turn left. Told her to turn left. And she didn't do it. He told her that he believed that air traffic control wanted them to turn left towards the East River bank. And they talk about how, and they've got analysts and so forth, turning left would have opened up more space between the helicopter and Flight 5342, which was heading for runway 33 at an altitude of roughly 300 feet. And they just say that she completely ignored her co-pilot. Reporting the New York Times. So I guess it's coming down to pilot error, clearly pilot error. If she's not listening to her co-pilot and she didn't necessarily clearly heed the warnings of the air traffic control, and that led to over 60 lives being lost on that horrible evening. So anyway, we'll see what if there's any more of this investigation that is going to happen. But that is what the New York Times is reporting this morning, that the female pilot just completely ignored the co-pilot and refused to turn left, and they ended up hitting the plane. That whole story just confuses me to no end. But anyway, if there's any more information on that, we'll be sure to report it to you here on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. All right. I thought this was a fun story. And that is the White House Correspondents' Dinner. I played you a couple of audio bites earlier in the show, but they talk about how this was a low-wattage affair. But there was one moment, and it was a big moment. There was one moment where one of the reporters got up. He was being honored, actually, at the White House Correspondents Association dinner. Guy by the name of Alex Thompson, and this has gone viral. He gets up and he spoke the truth about the journalists in that room. Listen very closely.
To my bones, I believe that reporting and the White House Correspondents Association is as necessary as ever. President Biden's decline and its cover-up by the people around him is a reminder that every White House, regardless of party, is capable of deception. But being truth tellers also means telling the truth about ourselves. We, myself included, missed a lot of this story.
Yep.
And some people trust us less because of it. Mm-hmm. We bear some responsibility for faith in the media being at such lows.
Yep. I mean, you could hear a pin drop in that room. But here's the thing. When he says, and again, this moment went viral, Alex Thompson, he is from Axios. When he says that the media missed that story, did they miss it? Or did they ignore it? Or did they literally lie to the American people? Because I think that's important. Because I don't believe that the media missed the story of Joe Biden and his declining mental state. I think they lied to the American people. That really is what happened, because there is a difference between missing a story and covering up a story or blatantly lying to the American people. That's where the whole gaslighting thing came in. Joe Biden is sharp as a tack. We all heard, when we all saw something completely different.
I say this because acknowledging errors builds trust, and being defensive about them further erodes it. We should have done better. I believe our mission is vital in a world where people are struggling to figure out what's true, and people with power are not telling the truth.
I mean, he's obviously absolutely right. But then things got even more awkward. Coming up next, I've got a little bit more audio on what they like to call the Nerd Prom. There in Washington, D.C., the White House Correspondents' Dinner. It is all straight ahead. Nashville's Morning News on WTN. Time to check the roads. Weather today, a high of 88, partly cloudy as well. Thunderstorms are expected through Thursday. No rain today, but thunderstorms Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday as well. 58 degrees right now on Super Talk, 99.7 WTN. So the White House Correspondents' Dinner, the ceremony continued, and after the Alex Thompson from Axios totally calls them out for, he says, missing Joe Biden's rapidly mental decline, they wrapped it up with the White House Correspondents' President, guy by the name of, what is his name? It is Eugene Daniels. This is Eugene Daniels, and I want you to listen closely to what he has to say about journalists, and specifically journalists in that room, aligning with one side or the other.
Our responsibility is not to align with any one party or any one agenda, but to serve the people of this country with integrity and dedication.
All right, so let's just examine that statement, shall we? It's kind of funny because there are so many polls that are out there that show that American journalists are aligned with one party. Democrats. The 2022, and I covered this at the time, the 2022 American Journalism Study found that 37% of reporters are Democrats. Just 3.4% consider themselves Republican, and 51.7% say, I'm going to use the term claim that they are independents. Another study, the Media Research Center, found that 94% of donors affiliate with the 5 major news outlets gave to Democrats between 2008 and 2016. Again, 94% of donors affiliated with the 5 major news outlets gave to Democrats between 2008 and 2016. The Center for Responsive Politics also found that 65% of contributions went to Democrats, and the Center for Public Integrity found that in 2010, 65% of contributions from journalists went to Hillary Clinton and the Democrats. And so the more you talk about all of this, the more you realize, okay, so there's study after study after study that shows that this statement...
Our responsibility is not to align with any one party or any one agenda, but to serve the people of this country with integrity and dedication.
Was just not truthful, is actually a lie. I mean, we can keep going. Washington Post, just 7% of journalists are Republicans. 7% of journalists are Republicans. That is far fewer than a decade ago. And some of this polling that I'm telling you about is older. A 2020 Pew Research Center analysis showed 65% of negative campaign coverage targeting Republicans compared to 35% for Democrats. And it does vary by outlet. But yeah, the bottom line is that far more Republicans are the victims of negative campaign coverage than the Democrats are. And so the studies and study after study shows that Republicans are getting far worse coverage than Democrats, and that Donald Trump, as you know, gets the worst coverage of them all.
What we are not is the opposition. What we are not is the enemy of the people, and what we are not is the enemy of the state.
Well, whatever. But I guess my question would be this. Whatever you say is what you're going to say. But when you're constantly lying to the American people, and this is what the White House Correspondents' Dinner does, is they like to talk about how important they are and all of that. But when you're constantly lying to the American people, then what would you call yourselves? It was Donald Trump that called them the enemy of the American people. And I, quite frankly, agree with Donald Trump. When you consistently take Trump's words out of context, like they're good people on both sides, what would you call that? Would you call that a lie? Are you trying to purposely cause a division by lying about an American president and what he said and take his words out of context? Of course, then you are the enemy of the American people. Just a few months ago, that Gallup survey came out and showed that the media trust is at an all-time low. When you in the media said that, the Border Patrol was whipping Haitian migrants and you knew that that was untrue, but you continued to report that as fact, even though it was clear that that was not the case, and what you're trying to do was cause division within America. I say that what that does is that means that you are horribly incompetent, which could also be true, or that you are trying to cause division. That tells me that you are an enemy of the American people. Just 31% of respondents to Gallup's latest survey on the topic said that they trust the mainstream media a great deal. Just 31%, or a fair amount. 36% say they don't trust the media at all. And another third say they do not have much trust in the media whatsoever. So the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and remember, I played you this audio before, and let me play it again real quick, because this was full of self-importance. It was full of narcissism. As I said before, a healthy dose of hypocrisy. This is the White House Correspondents Association President Eugene Daniels.
The lion's share of tonight's program will focus on excellence from across the beat. The best of us who sacrifice everything to ensure the public has the access to hear, see, and know what is going on with their elected leaders.
So this is where I would list all of the different hoaxes that has been perpetuated in the White House Correspondents Association, media, by and large, across America. But again, they don't have a comedian, and this is important. They didn't have a comedian at the awards this year. The reason they didn't have a comedian was because the one that they hired said this about the Trump administration.
You're kind of a bunch of murderers.
That was Amber Ruffin. Now, here's the thing. Remember this. They hired Amber Ruffin knowing that she was just absolutely laden with Trump derangement syndrome.
You're kind of a bunch of murderers.
And so they hired her knowing that she would say things like that. So if you're the guy who's in charge of the White House Correspondents' Dinner and you hire someone who says things like,
you're kind of a bunch of murderers.
Why would you hire that person? And so then when she went on, I forget what show it was, but she said that about the Trump administration. And she said this to Jake Tapper.
Do you want him to be there this year?
No, no one wants that. I don't know that anyone's looking forward to being in the same room as him.
So when she was on record as saying stuff like that, yet you hired her anyway, then it is obvious that you are and you have aligned yourself to one side. Obviously. 7:23. Joan Jones is out today. She'll be back tomorrow, but Jay Harper is in. Jay, what's coming up at 7:30?
Yes, Dan, a reported ceasefire coming up in the Russia-Ukraine war. Also, the investigation continues in Vancouver in that deadly attack there, and hundreds losing their jobs here in Tennessee. We'll have those stories and more coming up at 7:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Dan Mandis here for USS United Structural Systems. Listen, they are experts in waterproofing, concrete leveling, and foundation repair. Now, listen, I've been a customer of USS for a long time. This is a great company, and they've helped me several times with my home, and that is why I do proudly endorse United Structural Systems. Now, we've got all this rain coming tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday as well, possible thunderstorms. So you need to go down in your basement. You need to check if there's any water in your basement or your crawl space. If there is, then you need to pick up the phone. You got to call my friends at United Structural Systems because they can help you out with waterproofing. Now, I'm one of 30,000 satisfied customers. Listen to this recent review on Google. A guy says that USS was highly professional. The crew was phenomenal from start to finish. They treated his home as if they're working on their own, and he gives USS 5 stars all the way, as do I. United Structural Systems, they won't charge you for any unnecessary repairs, and you won't pay a dime until the work is done and you're a satisfied customer. We guarantee our best. Call USS at 615-488-7855, 615-488-7855, USSTN.com. $7:26, Nashville's Morning News. I want to tell you a website that if you own a European vehicle, you've got to check these folks out at Rentstall. Their website is itrustmymechanic.com. That's itrustmymechanic.com. Rentstall is about to open here in Middle Tennessee. And if you own a BMW, an Audi, a Mercedes-Benz, a Porsche, any other European car, this is a great company, a family-owned company. It's a new place to get your vehicles serviced, Rentstall. Now, I got to tell you, I've met with these folks. They are amazing. Now, they like to say that this is dealer-level service, but family-level care and honest pricing, not a corporate mindset like a lot of these other places. Just a family business helping out our neighbors and friends by delivering honesty, respect, and exceptional service. Again, they are locally owned and locally operated and exclusively work on all European vehicles. Now, one of the things that I like about Rentstall is they love our vets, and they proudly offer the Heroes Service Discount. Veterans, active duty military, first responders, and emergency medical personnel, you're going to get a 10% discount on all repairs. They also offer complimentary shuttle service and free Uber rides as well. Also, immediate appointments and a quick turnaround. So check them out. Rentstall is opening soon, and they're accepting appointments for the month of May. Conveniently located across the street from the Academy of Country Music and 5 minutes from Music Row and 2 minutes from downtown. Check out their website again, itrustmymechanic.com, 615-777-7100, 615-777-7100. $7:28, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk, 89.7 WTN. Okay, coming up, Jonathan Fahey is going to join us. We're going to talk about all things illegal immigration. Over the weekend, ICE arrested 800 illegal aliens in Florida. And also, we were telling you earlier, and I don't know why I find this so funny, but I do. Kristi Noem's, her purse, her handbag, whatever you call it, you know that it was stolen, and now we find out over the weekend, Kristi Noem's bag was stolen. Department of Homeland Security was stolen by an illegal alien. And now they caught him, and away he is going to go to wherever he came from. Did I say Guatemala earlier? I think it was Guatemala. Anyway.
Chile.
Chile, yeah.
Oh, was it Chile?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. It was Chile. And coming up, going to speak with Jonathan Fahey about this and many other stories. It is all straight ahead on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Good morning. It's 7:30, and I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. Traffic and weather are coming up. Reuters, as well as other news sources, reporting that Russian President Vladimir Putin today declared a 3-day ceasefire in the war with Ukraine next month to mark the 80th anniversary of the victory of the Soviet Union and its allies in World War II. The Kremlin said the 72-hour ceasefire would run from the start of May 8th to the end of May 10th, and Russia called on Ukraine to join in. They also said that any violations by the Ukrainian side, they would give an adequate and effective response, according to the Russian statement. Canadian officials working around the clock to determine the motive in a deadly car ramming at a Filipino heritage festival in Vancouver over the weekend. ABC's Matt Gutman has more.
11 people between the ages of 5 and 65 were killed and dozens more injured. Overnight, authorities identifying the suspect as 30-year-old Kaiji Adam Lowe. Authorities are not discussing a motive, but police say they've had several previous interactions with the suspect because of his mental health struggles. Authorities charging the suspect with 8 counts of second-degree murder.
Here in Middle Tennessee, over 400 workers will be losing their jobs after an automotive seating manufacturer announced the permanent closure of 2 facilities here in the Volunteer State. According to WARN notices filed with the State Department of Labor and Workforce Development, Adient facilities in Murray and Henderson counties will be closed permanently come this summer. Both facilities will reportedly close on June 27th. Let's go ahead and take a look at our stock numbers here this morning before the opening bell. The futures, the Dow down 49, the S&P down 10, and the NASDAQ down 42. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather are next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Dan Mandis here. Thank you, Jay, for J&J Trash. Now, friends, if you're new to Nashville or maybe you've been here a long time, but you need reliable garbage pickup, call my friends at J&J Services. There are a lot of companies out there, but J&J Services, they've been around for 20-plus years. And if you throw it away, they'll take it or they'll crush it. Now, regular weekly trash pickup, construction sites, dumpster rental, and even commercial trash compactor services, they have it all at J&J Services. Now, this is a great company. They'll work with you on pickup times, and yes, they are reliable as well. By the way, they're also in the porta potty business, and so if you're planning an event and you need some porta potties, they can help you there too. 2 decades of taking out the trash in Middle Tennessee. Call J&J Services for a free quote. Tell them Dan told you to reach out at 615-599-7778, 615-599-7778. Their website, jnjservices.com, J&J Services, where they always keep it trashy. Dan Mattis here for Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. Listen, spring rebate madness at Busy Bee is going on right now. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. They've got low prices anyway. You throw in those rebates. Unbeatable deals right now from Busy Bee. A mini split 17 SEER or a heat pump 17 SEER. That is an $800 rebate. Heat pumps 15 and 16 SEER. That's a $500 rebate. And duct sealing or repair. That is a $300 rebate. So many ways to save with my friends at Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. I've been a Beehive member myself for years. Right now, you get a $50 rebate on your spring and fall tune-up, and that means that you've already saved enough money to pay for the Beehive membership for the year. They'll even file the rebates so you don't have to. There's a ton of other benefits. When you join the Beehive Club, check them all out at their website, busybeehvac.com, busybeehvac.com. Tell them Dan told you to reach out at 615-775-7833, 615-775-7833.
We have 3 injury crashes on various sections of Old Hickory Boulevard. The first one, Old Hickory Boulevard at Wildwood Valley Drive. The next one, Old Hickory Boulevard, just east of Cloverland Drive. And then we have Old Hickory Boulevard north of Saddle Creek Way. We've got a 1-car wreck that's blocking the right shoulder, 40 westbound, right before exit 215. And a slowdown, kind of a mystery jam on 840 westbound in the Almaville Road exit area. We've got your traffic every 10 minutes, every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
$7:36, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7. Welcome on into your Monday. Hope you're doing well. It is April 28th of 2025. Thunderstorms expected Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Rain-free today. High of around 88 under partly cloudy skies. Jonathan Fahey is joining us on the Newsmaker Hotline. Jonathan, always great to have you on. I love this story regarding this judge in Wisconsin, Hannah Dugan. And so I was telling folks in the 5 o'clock hour, but a lot of people have turned over. So let's talk about this. Milwaukee, Wisconsin, a judge named Hannah Dugan has now been arrested for shielding an illegal alien from ICE. So what she did, Jonathan, and for folks listening, is she's got this illegal alien, which, by the way, he's, number one, an illegal. Number two is he allegedly beat up 2 people. ICE and some of these other agencies show up to the courthouse to grab him on his, I guess it's a detainer, ICE detainer, whatever it is. And this judge sent all of these agencies to another judge's, I guess, chambers or room. And as they were going and as they were gone, she snuck this guy out of the court. In other words, what she did was she hid this guy and shuffled him out of there so that he could escape going back and getting deported. And she did this to, I mean, obviously a big middle finger to Donald Trump. And this judge has now been arrested.
Yeah, the behavior there is absolutely outrageous, and she deserved to be arrested. And the Justice Department, you're hearing all these Democrats complaining about it, but it's their responsibility to arrest people that obstruct justice, whether they're a judge or anyone else. But yeah, this behavior just shows basically how extreme the Democratic Party is on this immigration issue, because this guy not only was sitting there on a domestic violence charge, but he's also been deported before, so re-entering the United States is a felony. So they would rather have somebody, because at this point I don't think his trial had finished, that he may be a domestic abuser, and they'd rather have him out on the streets of Milwaukee than deported from the country, because they're so extreme on this issue. It's just basically open borders, mass amnesty, no matter what. And the Democrats, their response to this is truly remarkable, because, they are defending this judge. They're defending obstruction. They're defending alien harboring. And it's astonishing, actually. I would think they would at least say, hey, you shouldn't obstruct justice, even though we, want some of these immigration policies to tone down or stop. But their lesson from the last election is double down on open borders and amnesty.
Well, by the way, they arrested the guy outside of the courthouse after a brief foot chase. So she orders federal authorities to go speak to another judge in another chamber in another room. Then she sneaks the guy out the back door, clearly illegal. Now we have people that are making not only this judge a hero, but also apparently this guy, Eduardo Flores Ruiz. This is the guy who, beat up a couple of people pretty badly. And now they're making him into a hero as well. Do you see this going the way of another Kilmar Abrego Garcia, or do you think that the Democrats have learned their lesson with these guys?
I think they're going to keep going with this thing, because they have a decent narrative. At least the media supports it. That basically they make it seem like Donald Trump is just going in there locking up judges for no reason. So I think they're going to ride this, and he'll become the Milwaukee father or a Wisconsin man or whatever.
Right.
But it's just so outrageous. But yeah, they can count on the media, meaning the Democrats, to cover for them and to promote the narrative they want to promote. So, yeah, I don't think they've learned a lesson for Garcia, really, because they're still talking about it. They've changed course a little bit with the facts coming out. Initially, it was the Maryland father, and now Democrats are just the party of due process. That's just so important for them to due process. Incidentally, they don't care when it's on the other side about due process, but it's funny how quickly their narrative changes. And then if he comes back and gets more process and gets deported again, they'll have some other reason to oppose his deportation. The main thing is no one gets deported in the Democrats' eyes, no matter what. And that was the Mayorkas-Biden model, and that's what the Democrats are going to continue doing. And they hope they'll win in 2028, and they will push for mass amnesty.
So there's a guy named David Brooks out there. He's from the New York Times, and his comments now have gone viral because he is one of the ones that he's a columnist, I guess, or a writer for the New York Times. And he is calling, this judge a hero. But I wanted to play this audio for you because he also calls ICE and some of these other agencies that are trying to hunt down these illegal aliens. He calls them predatory. Listen to this.
And so you can both think that she shouldn't have legally done this, and that morally protecting somebody against, or maybe not even in this case, but in other cases, frankly, a predatory enforcement agency.
Predatory. I mean, they're looking for illegal aliens. They're looking for people that have not only broken our law, but further on, they're also looking for people who have broken other laws other than our immigration laws. And so I guess now that is going to be part of the narrative as well, or the accusation is that Trump's law enforcement agencies are going to be called predatory. Clearly, the American people appreciate getting these folks out of here.
Yeah, I think the American people support these actions so that they know the facts of them. But, this is really the Democrat MO of defaming law enforcement. And it's not just limited to this situation. They've always been doing that with ICE. Kamala Harris comparing them to KKK agents, Biden, falsely accusing Border Patrol agents of whipping migrants. They always defame law enforcement. That's almost their default position. And it's just outrageous because these are people that are putting their lives on the line for our safety. And everything the Democrats do is put them at greater risk and the American citizens at greater risk because they always put the interest of illegal aliens ahead of the American citizens. You cannot cite to one example, or at least that I can't think of any example where they've ever put American citizens ahead of illegal aliens. It's just so outrageous. But it is, some of these senators, I think Van Hollen and some of these other ones, accuse the ICE agents of abduction and kidnapping of of Maryland man. So again, that's accusing them of a very serious crime when they're simply doing their jobs. And the agents that took out that arrested Maryland man, however the case shakes out, they were still doing their jobs, and there's no dispute about that. Yep. So this idea that they did something wrong is absolutely outrageous. But it is the default. They will always dump on law enforcement. We remember from BLM. I mean, that whole Democrat 2020 campaign was, this anti-law enforcement, create as much chaos as you can, defame them, call them racist, call them the worst names in the book. And then, because all they care about is mass amnesty, open borders, and they will fight to the, basically to death on this issue.
Well, the
they
political death, certainly. The political death, certainly. That's
what I mean. They never compromise on it.
Have you heard about this New Mexico judge that was harboring Tren de Aragua gang members? This is the craziest story. Going to talk about this coming up next. Jonathan Fahey is joining us. Time to check the roads on WTN. Weather today, it's going to be partly cloudy and a high of 88 today, but we want to pay attention. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, thunderstorms expected to roll through Middle Tennessee. Your full forecast is coming up at 8 at Super Talk 99.7 WTN. All right, so this judge, Jonathan, in New Mexico, apparently he's been harboring Tren de Aragua gang members. There is one specifically, but then apparently now there have been other ones that they have found out about as well. And so, number one, he was harboring the Tren de Aragua gang members in New Mexico, but now they've been busted for trying to destroy evidence. This is a piece from NBC News.
So you're saying a former judge of New Mexico knew that he had Venezuelan gang members living and working for him. That's what you're saying.
Well, what we know, that was the judge's wife. So the judge, Joel Cano, what happened with him is post Miranda, he admitted that he took one of the defendant's phones and took a hammer himself, destroyed the phone with a hammer, then took the parts of the phone, carried it away to a city dumpster to dispose of it so an illegal alien would not be caught.
And it was on those, the images on the phone that this judge was trying to destroy and hide. Images, horrific images of bodies that had been mutilated by machetes, which is what Tren de Aragua does. Thereby, of course, the images on the phone proving that this guy was a gangbanger. So have you ever, in your wildest dreams, Jonathan Fahey, thought that you would hear about a sitting judge trying to harbor illegal alien gang members?
No, it's so outrageous, and I want to say unbelievable, but it's sort of par for the course of the Democratic Party. They do things that are so outrageous in favor of this, open borders policy that they'll do anything, and they think they're right. If you look at his statements around this, he thinks he's fully justified in doing so. It's, it reminds us of, Hillary Clinton when they were smashing the cell phones and, with her campaign in 2016. And it's just so unbelievable that anyone would support this judge, meaning on criminal charges or anything else, publicly support this. This behavior should be condemned uniformly, and the Democrats don't, and that's just so amazing. And it makes you think, if he's destroying evidence on the phone, what else has he done, and what else does he know? And it's just like, wow, you'd rather have Tren de Aragua members in the country because you're so committed to open borders, you're willing to put, the citizens of New Mexico at risk and everyone else in the country. And it's just so amazing to me that this is even tolerated. And in the media, you would watch these stories and you would think this judge and the Wisconsin judge were fully justified in what they're doing, and they have so much support in the Democratic Party. But the Democratic Party on this issue, we talk about like the 80-20 issues, or this is probably like a 90-10 issue on illegal alien criminals, but they come out on the 10 every time.
So we are Wednesday, I believe, marks 100 days under Donald Trump, of course. And you're someone who has been involved in the fight against illegal immigration for years and years. So from an illegal immigration standpoint, in the 1 minute that we have left, Jonathan, what grade would you give Trump specifically in the first 100 days on illegal immigration and fighting illegal immigration?
He should get an A on the illegal immigration, because look at what's going on at the border. What the numbers are down, 90-something% at the border, 95, and the number of people coming in and getting released in the country is down to almost zero. So he stopped the main problem, new people coming in. He's also getting the criminals out. There's massive deterrence because of the public-facing, comments and messaging from the White House. So the people here illegally are going to commit less crimes because they're afraid of being deported. No one will come. He's raised the morale for Border Patrol agents. So on this issue, he's hitting it out of the park, and I think he'll continue to do so once they get this budget passed, and they'll get a lot more money for Border Patrol.
All right, Jonathan Fahey, how can folks follow you on X?
John for Fairfax, JONFORFAIRFAX.
All right, thank you very much. Jonathan Fahey with us on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. By the way, coming up, there is a headline over the weekend where the Trump administration was guilty of deporting a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 7-year-old. Oh, the humanity. I got the actual story coming up on Super Talk 99.7. Jay Harper's in the WTN newsroom. Jay.
Yes, a first responder in Kansas City stabbed, and you won't believe the circumstances. Also, investors wondering if they're holding too much stock with the economic uncertainty out there. We'll have those stories and more coming up at 8 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
$7:51 on WTN. Dan Mandis here for my friends at Zero Res. Listen, I've been a client for years and years. One big reason is that they really do help my allergies. Now, carpet is the #1 air filter inside your home, and it filters out those airborne particulates, the pollen and the bacteria. You name it, if it makes you sneeze, it is in your carpet. Zero Res is going to filter out that bad stuff so that you can keep your filter clean. And Zero Res does this better than anyone. They don't use any harsh chemicals or soaps, just powered water that leaves behind soft and fluffy carpets. Now, right now, they've got a great deal going on for this month. They're always looking for ways to save you money. 2 rooms of carpets cleaned for just $109 plus. You are going to get a free hallway. Again, 2 rooms of carpets cleaned for just $109 plus a free hallway and 25% off of area rugs. Restrictions may apply. 615-535-9376. 615-535-9376. Book online. ZeroResNashville.com. 7:54 at Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. All right. So there was this headline where the Trump administration was accused of deporting a 2, 4, and a 7-year-old, of course, illegal aliens. And they asked this question of Marco Rubio. And I love what the Secretary of State did, because he said, listen, that's actually not what is going on. And what was actually going on is they deported the kid's mother. That's what was going on. And the kids, you know, they can go with mom or they can stay in America.
That's a misleading headline.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved the fact that he was on with, I forget who, I think it was ABC. He was on with, ABC over the weekend, and they presented him with that story about the 2, 4, and 7-year-olds who were supposedly deported by Donald Trump and the Trump administration, and he just totally called them out.
That's a misleading headline.
Here's what he said.
3 U.S. citizens, ages 4, 7, and 2, were not deported. Their mothers, who were legally in this country, were deported. The children went with their mothers. If those children are U.S. citizens, they can come back into the United States if there's their father or someone here who wants to assume them.
Yep.
But ultimately, who was deported was their mothers who were here illegally. The children just went with their mothers. But it wasn't like, you guys make it sound like ICE agents kicked down the door and grabbed the 2-year-old and threw him on an airplane. That's misleading. Yeah. That's just not true.
Right, and it's not true. And I love that he called them out. A few more notes on this. According to their lawyers, and this is, by the way, the Associated Press. According to their lawyers, both families were taken into custody while attending routine check-ins this week in New Orleans as part of the intensive supervision appearance program, which allows individuals to remain in their communities while undergoing immigration proceedings. Lawyers say the families were taken to Alexandria, Louisiana, a 3-hour drive from New Orleans, where they were prevented from communicating with their family members and legal representatives, and then put on a flight to Honduras. Now, we actually don't know what the truth is. But one of the things that I've noticed is that the truth always eventually comes out. I mean, Kilmar Abrego Garcia is a perfect example. Oh, he's a Maryland man and he's a devoted husband and father. You know, week later, oh, wait, he beat his wife? She wanted a protective restraining order against him? Wait, he's a human trafficker? Wait, he was driving erratically? Wait, he was driving a car that was owned by a convicted human trafficker? Wait, he pretended not to speak English? Oh, okay. The truth always comes out. And the media always tries to make it sound worse than it is. And so this is more from Marco Rubio calling out ABC and taking them to task.
Is it the U.S. policy to deport children, even U.S. citizens, with their families, and I hear what you're saying, without due process? Just to be very clear there.
Well, no. Again, if someone's in this country unlawfully, illegally, that person gets deported. If that person is with a 2-year-old child or has a 2-year-old child and says, I want to take my child with me, well, then you have two choices. You can say, yes, of course you can take your child, whether they're a citizen or not, because it's your child. Or you can say, yes, you can go, but your child must stay behind. And then your headlines would read, U.S. holding hostage 2-year-old, 4-year-old, 7-year-old while mother deported. So the parents make that choice. I imagine those 3 U.S. citizen children have fathers here in the United States. Yeah. They can stay with their father. That's up to their family to decide where the children go. Children go with their parents. Parents decide where their children go. Right. The U.S. deported their mothers who were illegally in America.
Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Again, that is Secretary of State Marco Rubio calling out the reporting of the media on that story. 2, 4, and 7-year-olds supposedly deported by the Trump administration. Not so much. And now, Tom Homan versus Joe Scarborough on MSNBC.
Look, the American people voted for this. American people voted for Donald Trump. This is number one issue. Vast majority of Americans want illegal aliens moved from this country. And it's done humanely. However, we got to remember this. There are millions of people standing in line, taking their tests, doing their background investigation, paying their fees to be part of the greatest nation on earth. They're sitting in the back seat while 10.5 million illegal aliens came to this border, enter this country illegally, which is a violation of law. There's right way and right way to come to this country legally. The people who came across, they call them asylum seekers, but you and I both know, if you look at immigration court data, 9 out of 10 of those so-called asylum seekers will end up with an order removal. They overwhelm the system on purpose. Why? Because they know it's going to take 5, 7, 9 years to have a hearing, which they will lose, but now they have U.S. citizen kids. Now they own equities. Now there may be Democratic administration in power, which will award amnesty. They're playing the long game, but we're enforcing laws as enacted by Congress, which you're a member of. We're not making this up. We're enforcing laws on the books, including the Alien Enemies Act, which is an act created by Congress. We're simply using laws on the books to make this country safer.
I love how Joe Scarborough just gave up on trying to get a word in edgewise. It is 8 o'clock on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Good morning. It's 8 a.m. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories, traffic and weather. They're on the way. Russian President Vladimir Putin has unilaterally declared a 3-day ceasefire in Ukraine from May 8 to coincide with World War II Victory Day commemorations. That's according to the Kremlin today. The Kremlin said the decision was based on humanitarian considerations and that all military actions would be suspended from midnight May 8 to midnight May 11. Russia marks the defeat of Nazi Germany in a holiday celebrated on May 9th. An advisor to the head of Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky's office responded by saying that the ceasefire must be unconditional because everything else is just Putin's tactical games. That's a quote. Moscow has previously rejected a U.S. proposal for a 30-day ceasefire in the conflict that was agreed to by Ukraine. A Kansas City woman is held on charges of fatally stabbing a first responder. Here's ABC's Jim Ryan.
It was a routine medical call about a person with an injured finger. The patient was loaded into an ambulance, and within minutes, the driver made a frantic call for help. The audio comes from Broadcastify.
Medic 14 has a crew member that's been stabbed.
29-year-old firefighter paramedic Graham Hoffman would die of his injuries. Police are holding 39-year-old Shanetta Bossel. She has no felonies on her record, but was arrested last week on charges of biting a police officer.
With the market so volatile lately, investors are wondering if they're holding too much stock. Here's Wayne Cabot.
The average investor puts 3/4 of their savings into stocks, says Vanguard, with those at retirement age, 55 to 64, holding 64%. A financial advisor in Nashville is fielding tons of calls and put it this way. When you're retired, paper losses aren't just on paper anymore. And if you're going with gold as a hedge, it's still glittering at more than $3,300 an ounce.
Authorities on Florida's Gulf Coast, they're looking for a boat that was involved in a deadly hit-and-run crash on the water involving a passenger ferry. Here's Andrew Dimbert reporting.
Police in Clearwater say a boat hit the ferry, which was carrying about 45 people. At least one person on the ferry was killed, several others injured. The ferry was packed with people going back and forth to a days-long festival that had just wrapped up. After it was hit, the ferry came to a rest on a sandbar near a bridge. Passengers say the boat that hit the ferry then sped away.
Authorities have identified the owner of that boat and are continuing to investigate. Let's turn now to the market numbers report. It's brought to you by Beacon Capital Management. They are online at beaconcm.com. The stock futures before the opening bell, things looking a little better in that regard now. The Dow up 35, the S&P up 3, and the NASDAQ futures are up 8. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather are next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News. Some police activity reported, some vehicles pulled over. 840, this would be westbound, just past exit 67. An injury crash reported now. Briley Parkway at I-40 West, that's exit 27. And also an overturned vehicle has the off-ramp blocked, 40 eastbound, the off-ramp to exit 182 in the Fairview area. We've got your traffic every 10 minutes, every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.808 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN, and welcome on in to your Monday, April 28th. Joan Jones returns tomorrow. Appreciate Jay filling in, and also KGB Jeff Malinoff is producing today. Headline: Trump says income tax cuts and perhaps elimination coming due to tariffs. Now, this has been something the president has been saying for a long time. He says that, you know what, if we can get the American people to pay less taxes, why would we not do it? Now, you're going to have some people that are going to say, oh my gosh, that's a terrible idea. He's crashing our economy. Then there's going to be other people that are going to say that is a great idea. And as I've said over and over again, and I'm not going to bore you with that same monologue today, but to be honest with you, nobody knows how this whole thing is going to end. The reason why is because things are still being negotiated. But Scott Bessent was on some of the weekend shows, of course, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, and he was on with Martha Raddatz as polling now has come out, and take all of this with a grain of salt. But Donald Trump's numbers on the economy are down, and it's not really surprising. But, you know, I don't know if Donald Trump actually cares about his polling numbers, at least right now, because he knows that his numbers are going to go down, because he said we are going to have some pain, some short-term gain as we try to literally change our economy. And so that is the headline you're seeing all over the place this morning and over the weekend. Trump's 41% approval rating, they say, is the lowest for any newly elected president at 100 days. And that does date back to, they say, at least Dwight Eisenhower, and that also includes Donald Trump's first term. So that was the breathless reporting over the weekend. Scott Bessent was on with the always seems to be crying Martha Raddatz. talking about that polling.
What I do know is that Americans are behaving very different than what the surveys say. So the surveys may say that, but consumers are still spending. So I prefer to look at what Americans are doing rather than how they're answering pollsters.
Yeah, and that does make a lot of sense. Now, critics will tell you, because consumer spending is up, but some will say that people are buying a lot in anticipation of the tariffs, which Wall Street Journal came out with a thing over the weekend talking about how the worldwide supply chains could be impacted as well. We'll maybe see some higher prices for a time. Consumer confidence, they say, is down. But Besant thinks that with consumer confidence down, there is a reason for that. And this dovetails with something that I've been saying for a long time, and that is that the media desperately wants a recession.
When I look at some of the things that are being published, there was a story 10 days ago that said this is the worst April for the stock market since the Great Depression. 10 days later, the NASDAQ is now up in the month of April, and I haven't seen a story that says, oh, stock market has biggest bounce back ever. So
it certainly has gone back and forth.
I think a lot of this is media driven.
Let's talk about.
I love how she doesn't want to talk about that. She doesn't want to talk about how the media is driving that consumer confidence down. But that is what the media is doing. Now, Tom Lee is one major economist, and there are others as well, who does say that what happened last week cannot be ignored and that it may have hit rock bottom. We'll have to wait and see what happens. But, the markets may have hit rock bottom, and now the Dow is back up. I don't know where it is. It's going to open up here in a little bit, but the Dow is back up over 40,000. The NASDAQ and the S&P 500, they both rallied last week as well. They are still down for the year. The thing I'm trying to say to you is that we don't know what's going to happen with the markets. We don't know what's going to happen with the economy. However, I've never in my life seen a media so desiring of a recession. It's like they want to drive us into a recession. It's like they want to impact consumer confidence and consumer spending. That's what it feels like to me, because they always want to be able to report that Donald Trump was wrong. But Scott Besant is right about all of the doom reporting. Now, we are seeing progress in the markets. We'll have to see where it goes this week. But we're seeing we're seeing progress not only in the markets, but also in the tariff negotiations. Here's what Besant said about that.
He said that he has made 200 deals on tariffs. 200 deals? Who has he made deals with? Is there actually any deal at this point?
I believe that he is referring to sub-deals within the negotiations we're doing. If there are 180...
But those aren't actual deals.
Martha, if there are 180 countries, there are 18 important trading partners. Let's put China to the side because that's a special negotiation. There's 17 important trading partners, and we have a process in place over the next 90 days to negotiate with them. Some of those are moving along very well, especially with the Asian countries.
That is Scott Besant, and he had a lot more to say. I love, though, how, Martha Raddatz, and she's going to do her job, and I appreciate that she's got to be tough and ask the tough questions, and I like how Besant is answering those questions. I've got a little bit more audio, on Treasury Secretary Scott Besant and what he had to say, and what he has to say about China is coming up next. It is 8:15. Time to check the roads on WTN. As far as your weather for today, looks like we've got a high of 88, partly cloudy. We do have thunderstorms expected through Thursday. None today. But Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, look for some thunderstorms. Appreciate you listening to Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. By the way, the Super Text line is open. little quiet today. I'm not sure why. 615-737-9986. But here's the deal. Remember that Trump, he is trying to get these Asian countries first. We talked about this last week, so I'm just going to do a very brief retraces of if I can. So Trump is trying to put more pressure on China to come to the table and to come to a deal. Why? Well, because for Donald Trump, China is the main thorn in his side. It was never Canada. It was never Mexico. It was always China. Now, remember Friday, we had China blinking. Remember that whole story we talked about where they paused the tariffs on semiconductors and other parts, and they're actually looking at more elimination of their current 145% tariffs on other imports from America. And we talked about that on Friday where it looks like China blinked. Raditz interviewed a small businessman, and he is saying that it is hard, and this is part of what's going on with the market. The market hates uncertainty. They hate uncertainty. So Raditz was talking to a small businessman, and he did say that it's hard for him to plan for anything under the current situation, and they spoke about that.
The China tariffs are unsustainable because the Chinese cannot sustain this. That if the business people like the gentleman you interviewed, stop ordering, China has no business model. Their business model is predicated on selling cheap, subsidized goods to the U.S. And if there is a sudden stop in that, they will have a sudden stop in the economy, so they will negotiate.
Right, and that's the whole point. And the more that Donald Trump is negotiating with some of these other major nations, like, for example, India, the more that Trump comes to terms with nations like India, nations like Vietnam, nations like South Korea, the more isolated China is going to feel. Now, Trump is trying to bring back jobs, create a more level playing field, and that's what he's trying to do because, as Trump said, and as many have said, the current economy wasn't fair, and we were losing too many jobs, and we were losing billions and billions and billions and billions of jobs, but also not billions of jobs, but billions of dollars on the tariffs that other nations were charging America. They were costing us money. They were costing us jobs as well. Now, we'll see how this whole thing plays out, but right now, nobody really seems to know what happens or what is going to happen. We have a lot of people that are saying they know, they know, they know. Well, they don't know. Nobody does. Number one is you don't know how China is ultimately going to react or what they are eventually going to do. That's number one. And number two, Trump has even said we're going to have short-term pain for long-term gain. That's the play here. And by the way, Besant was more specific in what he said were the kind of jobs that he and President Trump want to see come back to America.
The goal is not to manufacture dog collars again in the U.S., that the president is looking forward to the jobs of the future, not the jobs of the past. The goal is to bring back high-performance manufacturing jobs or create high-performance manufacturing jobs. Right now,
How long does that take? I mean, that is such a concern. How long does it take to bring that to the U.S.?
Well,
is there a plan?
Of course, but it's a process. Right now, the U.S. has a barbell economy. We have a very advanced financial system. We have a the exploration and development that is the envy in the world. On the other side, we are a natural resource economy led by energy, which the previous administration tried to stifle. And in between is where working class Americans have lost out.
Right. And listen, he is right. Scott Besant is right. He also said that, yes, there are some negotiations with China taking place. Of course, China continues to reject that claim that Xi called Donald Trump by phone. No negotiations have yet taken place. I have no idea. I don't believe that President Xi and Donald Trump have spoken specifically. I think that their teams have probably spoken, but I have not seen where these two leaders have spoken specifically. It is 8:20 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. 1451 says, where is Dan getting his weather forecast of storms through Thursday? That was Stefano Di Pietro. I saw him on the TV earlier this morning. Let's see here. 4702 said, Dan, you haven't answered my questions. 4702 has been pestering me all day, gentlemen, trying to get information on where I went for barbecue this weekend. Because remember, on Friday, we talked about how I was going to go for barbecue. I'm going to talk about that during the 8:35 with the crisscross handoff. That is coming up here in just a few minutes on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Were they trying to meet you? They were trying to go to barbecue trunk going, where's Dan?
No.
Where's Dan?
I'm reasonably certain that's not the case. Ray said Martha Raddatz is a flaming liberal hack. I just like the way the show. You ever notice this, Jay? You watch the news all the time. You ever notice that Martha Raddatz always seems like she's on the brink of crying?
Yeah, she's always has that kind of inflated look. I don't know how else to put it. She's just like, yeah.
Didn't she actually cry when Trump won the first time?
I think she did. Didn't she do that? Didn't she cry the first time Trump
I think
won?
she's the one, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. I think
totally unbiased.
Oh, yeah, no bias there whatsoever. Anyway, Super Text line is open, 615-737-9986. I've been talking about the poll much this morning, and so let's talk about the poll. Watch us on YouTube, also X and Facebook, 997WTN.com. You watch us on YouTube, if you would, do us a favor and like and subscribe. And every day we do the Daily Dan poll. And the poll today is...
Do you believe that a peace deal is worth Ukraine giving up land to Russia? And it's 82% yes.
82% are like, you know what? Just let Russia have the stupid land. We're all done with this thing. Or let them all fight it out. That's basically what people are saying.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Wow, 4702 is throwing down some thunder at you, KGB. He says that you always misquote him. KGB always misquotes me, says 4702.
I don't care.
Are you misquoting people?
What did I say?
I don't know. 4702, what are you saying about KGB? All right,
KGB is always quoting me.
Misquoting you.
No, that was me misquoting him.
Oh. Very good, KGB. All right, very good. 822, and we have Jay Harper in the WTN newsroom for Joe Jones, who returns tomorrow. Jay, what's coming up?
Well, Dan, the process to select a new pope has been scheduled. Also, arrests have been made in the theft of the Homeland Security Secretary's purse. Yes, big news there. We'll have that and more coming up at 8:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Dan Mandis here. Now, friends, listen, if you own a BMW, an Audi, a Mercedes-Benz, a Porsche, any other European car, I've got great news because next month there's going to be a brand new place here in Middle Tennessee and Nashville to get your vehicle serviced. It's called Renstall. Now, Renstall offers the best technicians, the latest and greatest diagnostic equipment, and they're dedicated to customer service. Now, I know that a lot of places say, well, we're dedicated to customer service. So let's get specific on what they want to do in Renstall. This is dealer-level service, but family-level care and honest pricing. Not a corporate mindset, just a family business trying to help out our neighbors and friends by delivering honesty, respect, and exceptional service for your European vehicles. They, by the way, locally owned and operated, exclusively work on all European vehicles. Now, Renstall, they also proudly offer the Hero Service Discount. This tells you what kind of company this is. Veterans, active duty military, first responders, emergency medical personnel all get a 10% discount on all repairs. The other thing that I really like, the Renstall Guarantee. They'll offer clear and honest pricing and, again, no unnecessary repairs ever. Now, Renstall is opening soon, and they're accepting appointments for the month of May. They are conveniently located across the street from the Academy of Country and Music, 5 minutes from Music Row, 2 minutes from downtown Nashville. Now, check them out online. I love this website. itrustmymechanic.com. itrustmymechanic.com. That is for Renstall. The phone number, tell them Dan told you to reach out, 615-777-7100, 615-777-7100 for Renstall. $826 on WTN. Dan Mandis here for my window company, Window Nation. I endorse these folks because they did great work for me in my home. Now, if you've got old and inefficient windows, it is time to upgrade with Window Nation. You know, they were ranked highest on Forbes' list of best window installers. That's right, highest. Now, they put new windows in my basement studio, my kitchen, my bedroom as well. They look fantastic, and they can do the same for you. These are windows that are made in the USA, and they've got a great deal going on right now for listeners to my show from Window Nation. If you buy 4 windows, you get 4 additional windows free, plus no payments or interest until 2027. Now, these windows are energy efficient, so not only are you saving money on install, but on those electricity bills as well. Now, how do I know that you're going to be happy with Window Nation, my window company? Listen to this. They've got a 96% satisfaction rating and over 20,000 5-star reviews. Now, don't forget that great deal. You buy 4 windows, you get 4 additional windows free, plus no payments or interest until 2027. 866-90-NATION is a phone number. 866-90-NATION, windownation.com.
Good morning. It is 8:30, and I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. A weather forecast and a traffic report are upcoming. A date now set for the conclave the conclave of the Cardinals of the Catholic Church to choose a new pope. ABC's James Longman, he's got the story from Rome, just outside the resting place of Pope Francis, the Basilica of St. Mary Major.
We now have a date for the conclave. It will be May 7th, next Wednesday. This is when 135 cardinals who are eligible to vote will be deciding on who is the next pope. This is following, of course, the death of Pope Francis. Thousands have already been to pay their respects. The line goes all the way around the building here. Some 70,000 have been through. A very simple tomb. It's just his name in Latin, Franciscus, which is written on it.
2 arrests have now been made in the theft of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem's handbag at a Washington, D.C. restaurant on Easter Sunday. ABC's Stephen Portnoy, he has more from D.C.
The Secret Service says it's made 2 arrests in the case, one here in D.C., the other in Miami. The alleged thief of the secretary's purse is described by authorities as a serial offender in the country illegally who had no protective nexus to Kristi Noem or her role as head of Homeland Security. Noem's bag contained $3,000 cash, her passport, her keys, and her department ID card. The Secret Service says its investigation uncovered what it calls potential device and credit card fraud.
Money News brought to you by Beacon Capital Management. You can locate them online at beaconcm.com. Let's take a look at the market numbers. The Dow is up 98, the S&P up 9, and the NASDAQ up 23. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather are next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Dan Mendes here. You know, history had the gold rush, and then came the oil boom, then the tech boom. But right now, it is the Wi-Fi boom, and the Xfinity Wi-Fi is booming. Hey, it's Dan Mendes. Streaming, booming. Gaming, booming. Video calls, booming. Even when your boss schedules a meeting that definitely could have been an email. And right now, you can get Xfinity Internet and mobile together in one all-in plan. It is the ultimate power couple. Wi-Fi Power Boost from Xfinity Mobile gives you faster, secure Wi-Fi speeds at home and on the go, so your Wi-Fi is booming wherever you are. Now through June 23rd, new customers can get 400 megabit Xfinity Internet with free equipment and unlimited internet data, and get one unlimited 5G mobile line included, all in one plan, all for just $40 a month for a whole year. So whether you're working, watching, or panning for Wi-Fi gold, one thing is for sure: Xfinity Wi-Fi is booming. Find them online. Visit Xfinity.com to learn more. Requires paperless billing and auto pay with stored bank account. Restrictions apply. Taxes, fees extra. Xfinity Mobile requires Xfinity Internet. Reduced speeds after 30 gigabyte of data usage. Data thresholds vary. After 1 year, rate increases to $110 a month. After 2 years, regular rates apply to all services. Up to $143 a month. Actual speeds vary. $8:34, Nashville Tenton awning. Listen, Dan Mendes here. Here we are in springtime, heading into summertime. What big events do you have planned? Whether it is a big corporate event, maybe a family reunion, maybe a wedding at your home, Nashville Tenton awning can help you with an incredible enclosure that can be installed anywhere. Now, they've been around since 1884. If you want to have an event in your backyard, maybe a graduation, a birthday party, a July 4th barbecue, whatever, Nashville Tenton awning, they can help you with one of those amazing enclosures. They can look as fancy or as casual as you like. Now, yeah, they've been around since 1884. They are a Nashville institution. They've worked with the likes of the Titans, Vanderbilt, and the Grand Ole Opry. Now, they are one of the top companies in Nashville. So think about your backyard. You can actually extend your living space with a backyard enclosure so that you can enjoy the nice shade as the sun gets hotter as we head into summertime. Now, if you have an event for work coming up, they can help you as well with a tent or an enclosure. And they've got awnings for any style of building that's going to improve the look and feel of your home and office. So get some visuals, some great visuals actually. NTACONtaco.com, 615-329-3701. By the way, also find them on Facebook because they've got a great Facebook page as well with incredible examples of their work. Tell them Dan Mandis told you to reach out. Solid craftsmanship and built to last since 1884. Nashville Tent and Awning.
On the West Loop, 40 eastbound right before exit 208, a crash is blocking the right lane there. Also, Clarksville Pike at South Hamilton Road in the Bordeaux area, an injury accident just reported. And I-40 eastbound, the off-ramp to exit 182 in the Fairview area, it is still blocked. An overturned vehicle blocking that ramp. We've got your traffic every 10 minutes, every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
So I really was going to go out for barbecue this weekend. I really was. Because I do know that there was a lot made of me going out for barbecue this weekend, and I really meant to.
But then you decided to lean back on the communist tendencies.
That's exactly what I did.
Wait, what? Where did that come from?
So I was going to go for barbecue, and I had all these great ideas from listeners to the super text line, and I completely forgot. I totally and completely forgot.
No burnt ends?
No burnt ends for yours truly.
That's a bummer.
No burnt ends.
How has no one protested outside the station yet? That's my question. You have crossed the line, sir.
No ribs, no brisket or anything
none
of
of
the no, nothing. But you know what I did remember?
What did you remember?
I remember Murphy's big Bucky's mug. So
that's fancy.
Do you leave him some throat coat as well?
Murphy Show, if you're listening, no, I actually care about the throat coat. So Murphy, if you're listening, your mug is here in the studio. I know that Chris doesn't want it.
No.
Did you leave a note for him?
Well, chipmunks aren't real, right, Chris?
Chipmunks are not real. They're government watch drones.
That's exactly right.
They're part of the bird species.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure Chad Benson has his own mugs. And so I left this for Murphy Show. And if he wants it, great. So there you go.
What's the paper inside?
It says Murphy Show.
It says Murphy Show.
Oh, there's no little note for him?
The great thing, though, is that nobody will be able to read it because my handwriting is terrible.
Maybe just draw like a little middle finger for him, too. Just to see the reaction.
I wouldn't do that to Murphy Show.
He wrote on I bought like some creamer for coffee just for me, and he wrote, I spit in this one time, so.
You know what we know, though? Is that the actual people that do spit in coffee creamer at work, they don't write notes.
This is true.
Well, Murphy doesn't care. He wants chaos. He would absolutely do it and write it down.
Matt Murphy, chaos agent. That's why we love him. Afternoons at 3 on WTN. All right, let's get to content. Chris, go.
Did you hear the new the new scandal when it comes to the Star Wars series Andor?
No.
Okay, well you'll like this one because you're
the bad one?
You're a Star Wars guy. I don't know. Aren't they all bad after
Obi-Wan was really good.
No, I actually, Andor is one of the better. Ken Weaver loves Andor.
Really?
Yeah. So I tried to get into it. I got halfway through, and just like the barbecue this weekend, I forgot to watch it after a while.
Did you make it to the point where they just indoctrinate the audience with left-wing propaganda?
No, I didn't make it to that far.
This is the part that I'm looking forward to. Apparently, there's a new episode in this spin-off Andor that delves into the realm of undocumented migrants. And there's a scene where it really displays the imbalance of power between the Imperial Guard and the undocumented migrants because the third episode of the second season, you see an attempted sexual assault against an undocumented migrant from an Imperial Guard.
Did they actually call them undocumented migrants in the show?
I have not seen it. That's how the Post Millennial reports it.
Okay.
And the Hollywood Reporter asked their creator, Tony Gilroy, about it, who said in his response, "All of us who are here, we are all the product of rape. I mean, armies and
What?
power throughout history have committed rape. So everybody's the product of rape, too."
What does that even mean? Like, sometimes I don't think I'm smart enough to understand these things, but I think that's just dumb.
Does that mean we're all conceived by that, or is it just
Yeah,
like
you go back in our lineage far enough, and everybody's raped and
KGB,
pillaged.
we're all products of rape. Just deal with it and accept it. Just don't ask any questions.
I have so many though.
Don't ask.
I have nothing but questions with that one.
Yeah.
So instead of
lightsabers, we're having sexual assault of undocumented migrants.
Okay.
It's space wizards, for goodness sake.
Instead
They're
of
not space wizards.
instead
Shut
of
up.
hyperspeed,
The Force is wizardry. Sorry.
Instead of hyperspeed, we have apparently
space rape.
Space rape. Space.
Just put space in the title. That's all you need.
Andor. Space rape.
That's the subtitle to it.
It's all, why does it seem like all the stories I've been bringing lately have
rapey vibes to it?
What did we do? Was it Friday? We did
the dog rape story.
The dog rape.
Yep.
And now we're doing
we've done
space
the
one.
Dolphins. Remember the dolphin story where dolphins got a bit rapey?
Yeah.
I don't want to know Chris Hand's Google history now.
My Google ads are all messed up.
Yeah.
Guys.
Are they?
I don't know
I
what
bet
I'm
they
doing.
are.
Between this job and then what I do with Turning Point, where we look for like pride parades to go do content at, my Google algorithm is very confused on who I am.
It's very left-leaning, I'm assuming.
It's all over the place.
All right. I didn't know about Andor, but I think most people are just sort of. Are people over Star Wars now?
I think so.
Like because I'm a huge Star Wars fan, as everybody knows. I don't speak Wookiee, but
then you're not a real Star Wars fan.
He can understand it. He just can't speak it.
That's exactly right.
he's like Han Solo.
Yeah.
So anyway,
you're our Han Solo, Dan.
Sure.
No.
So anyway, I think if people liked Star Wars at one time, like I did growing up, Jay's over there. Hey, Jay. Try to participate, won't you?
Wow, call it. Dude, he had to get up pretty
Poor
early,
Jay.
and this is
Jay,
not his
you a
usual
big,
shift.
No,
Jay,
I'm
you
with
a Star Wars fan?
No, man. I tell you,
Jay.
I've only seen like 2 of the films. Just
we don't need your input now.
Yeah, I know. See, that's why I didn't jump in. I mean, the first one came out when I was a kid in high school, and I didn't care then, and
I've seen
don't really care now.
I've seen 8 of the 9.
Anyway,
8 of the 9.
I didn't see the last one because I was told by friends that care about me saying, "Do not watch the last one."
I did what any good dad would do. I told my boys there were only 6 movies.
See, that's the right call. I did see Force Awakens when it first came out, and I thought it was good. But then Last Jedi, I was like, this is not. Why is she flying in space?
Last Jedi was good, actually. I didn't mind.
So you're saying you're okay with Princess Leia being in space without any gear, dead, and all of a sudden she wakes up and flies with the Force back into the spacecraft, and she's okay? You're okay with that?
It made sense at the time.
No, it didn't. Sorry, that was the one scene where I lost the plot. J.J. Abrams, you should be ashamed of yourself.
Made more sense than the space rape.
It always goes
Why
back
do you
to the
always go
space
back
rape.
to the space rape?
Oh, man.
Is there a Guinness World Record for most times said space rape on a show?
I don't know.
We might have broken it already.
So, just a couple things real quick. How funny was it that Kristi Noem's purse was stolen by an illegal?
Oh.
That was awesome. From Chile.
It's poetry.
Yeah.
It's poetry. It would almost be like if WTN's favorite radio host was rear-ended by an illegal alien.
And I know, right? Just imagine that.
Like, what are the odds?
I can't even imagine it.
Speaking of the Guinness Book of World Records, did you see the ICE arrested 800 illegal aliens in Florida in one fell swoop?
It's pretty awesome.
That is awesome. I wonder if that breaks whatever record there might be for most illegal alien arrests in one day.
I don't know. I think as far as the numbers go, we got to do a little bit more to get up to the Obama levels for deportations.
Yeah. Okay. What were his numbers?
Didn't he have like 1.5 million?
He had a lot.
He was the deporter in chief.
He was the deporter in chief. Yep. Nobody. By the way, nobody attacked him.
No,
they're doing right now.
Not one bit. They didn't attack him for anything. Not the deporting. Not the Doge principles.
Mm-hmm.
None of that.
That's exactly right. What did you think of the Donald Trump being attacked for his dress at the Pope's funeral?
So
was that not just the dumbest thing ever?
I kind of missed this story. Was it because he was wearing blue and everybody else was wearing black?
Well, that was the accusation, but
at least he wore a suit. Did you see Zelensky?
Now Zelensky's
Do it. Say it, Dan.
Say communist.
I already said something earlier that got me in trouble. What was it again?
You were mispronounced?
Yeah, what did I say?
So
what's his
nuts?
Yeah.
Instead of saying what's his name, you said what's his nuts.
Can I just be honest with you?
Very inappropriate.
So by all means, let's repeat it.
Yeah,
like 5 times.
let's repeat it. Yeah.
So I'm going to be honest with you. I do get like this. You're like so comfortable talking on the radio that you kind of sometimes forget.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Your real life vernacular sometimes just spews out over 100,000 watts of FM radio.
If my real life vernacular came out, I would have to hit the dump button every 10 seconds. I have a terrible mouth.
So I didn't really expect Zelensky to wear a suit because he has said, as long as I'm at war, I'm not wearing a suit. Which I think is
very anti-suit.
Whatever. So, but there are a lot of other people.
Anti-Semitic.
Anti-suit medic. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so
moving right along.
Moving right along, man.
I thought it was good.
You're the only one. So
I know.
Anyway.
I'm proud of myself.
Listen, welcome to my world.
I'm going to get a Marconi for that.
Sure. You can have mine. So we have. So now this is the headline from Town Hall. The media's latest attack on Trump at the Pope's funeral blows up in their face because you look at the photos. A whole bunch of other people were in blue suits too.
Oh yeah.
So they talked about Trump and they reported that Trump this fashion faux pas at the Pope's funeral. And number one, Joe Biden was wearing a blue tie and a darker suit.
And 2 sets of pants.
And 2 sets, well, and it depends. So there was that too. So yeah, I just, for the media, I think that I think they're floundering right now.
Yes, they are really having an issue. I mean, after defending wife beater, illegal aliens, and gang members, they're really having a tough time.
How much did you listen to the audio from the White House Correspondents' Dinner?
I didn't listen to too much of it. I saw the guy from Axios win the award for finally reporting on Joe Biden's cognitive decline. I thought that's good. This is exactly the state of the media. Yeah.
So I want to draw attention to, I played this in the 6 o'clock hour. I need audio, KGB. Pay attention. So this is what, this was in literally the first 3 minutes, and I knew this was going to be a fun segment.
The lion's share of tonight's program will focus on excellence from across the beat. The best of us who sacrifice everything to ensure the public has the access to hear, see, and know what is going on with their elected leaders.
This after 4 years of ignoring Joe Biden and his cognitive decline.
The cognitive decline, the border invasion, the inflation. Can we go down the list?
Haitians, find people both sides.
Yep.
That was in the first couple minutes, and it was like, oh my goodness. Okay, so this is apparently where we're now going to go.
Yep.
And I mean the entire thing was laden with self-importance.
If the media doesn't pat themselves on the back, who will?
No one.
No one.
Literally no one. I went through the numbers earlier about how the media, mainstream media, is so incredibly unpopular right now. And I don't think enough has been made, so I'll go ahead and do it again. I don't think enough has been made about the fact that this was like an acoustic White House Correspondents' Dinner. Like they had no comedy, they had nothing fun. And it's because of the comedian, Amber Ruffin, the lady that they hired.
You're kind of a bunch of murderers.
Said that about the Trump administration. Well, so one of the things that they said was, well, it's just us this year. Well, the reason why it's just you is because you hired her.
You're kind of a bunch of murderers.
And she also said,
do you want him to be there this year?
No, no one wants that. I don't know that anyone's looking forward to being in the same room as him.
I mean, wow. So, that's why there was no comedy, because you tried to hire someone. And by the way, one of the things that they kept trying to say was, oh, we have no bias. We have no bias. Really? Because that's the woman that you hired who literally said, I will not be fair and balanced in my comedic attempts.
Yeah.
She's only going to go after Donald Trump.
I love that you highlight the word attempts.
Attempts. That's exactly right.
You have to make sure that's underlined in bold.
And then my final soundbite where they said, oh, no, we're not the enemy of the people.
What we are not is the opposition. What we are not is the enemy of the people, and what we are not is the enemy of the state.
Yeah, I think we should fact check that one.
Fact check untrue.
Yep.
And I went through, like earlier, I constantly lying to the American people, trying to purposely cause division, trying to impact an election. I mean...
And they're still doing it. I mean, you covered a little while ago the new narrative on the border. Oh, they deported a 2-year-old.
2-year-old, 4-year-old, a 7-year-old.
And we knew that this was going to come one day soon, that they were gonna highlight some crying child down on the border. It's like, no. They left with their mom. Their mom decided to bring them with them.
If they want to come back, they can.
Yeah.
That's why I loved, Marco. If you missed a segment, Marco Rubio was with I forget who he was talking to.
It was Kristen Welker on Meet the Press.
Kristen Welker, Meet the Press.
Is it Kirsten or Kristen? Does anybody know?
Kristen.
What I do.
Do we care?
What I do is I rotate back and forth.
Do you? Because
I feel like that way every time I'm only wrong 50% of the time.
That's exactly right. I've called
50% of the time it works every time.
I've called her both, actually. I've called her Kristen and Kirsten.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because
I think it's Kristen.
Is it Kristen?
Sometimes I do say Kirsten. But I say it really fast.
But do we care?
No.
I really don't.
No.
I think that's the big question here.
No.
Who cares?
Well, that's why I started calling Cringe Jean-Pierre Cringe, because I just couldn't get her first name right. So I said, let's just call her Cringe. That's a lot easier, and it's really appropriate.
Yep. 100%.
All right, moving right along. I don't know. Now it's bugging me. Is it Kirsten or Kristen?
Oh,
somebody that text line.
I just move on.
Listen. I've heard people do both. Maybe it was me, but I know that I've done it both.
It was definitely me.
All right.
It's Kristen.
Hey, did you pay any attention to the Shedeur Sanders thing over the weekend?
No, I have no idea what the Shedeur Sanders thing is.
Okay.
Who is Shedeur Sanders?
Well, here's what I'm going to do. If you have like 20 minutes to spare and you don't want to get it back, ask KGB about it.
Okay.
What does that mean? Sorry that I am knowledgeable.
No.
What happened to Shedeur? Who is Shedeur Sanders?
He was supposed to be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. He dropped to like the 5th round, which is 100+ picks, and people cried racism.
He's black. So that makes no sense at all.
What does that have to do? Isn't that the draft?
Yeah, the NFL draft.
That's that's the majority of the players.
So
right?
you ever heard of Deion Sanders?
I have.
All right, so Deion Sanders,
also
Shedeur,
black.
Yes, Shedeur Sanders is his son. Oh. And he went in really cocky and arrogant. And so he went, this is why attitude matters. He went from he was expected to drop first in the draft all the way down to the 5th round. Cost him millions of dollars.
So it's like a reverse LeBron James kid thing going on.
And by the way, we forgot to add, he has another son that was in the draft that went undrafted, and no one said a word about him.
Oh, all right.
So take with that as you will.
I agree.
Yeah, I don't really care.
I don't. You know what? I actually.
It matters to me now.
I enjoyed this conversation a lot more in the 5 when nobody listens. All right, Jay, what's coming up?
Yes, Dan. Well, hey, police in Vancouver now, they have a suspect in that weekend car ramming that killed almost a dozen people. Also, the Vatican now says the conclave to select a new pope will begin soon. And a man arrested after he picked on the wrong store in Nashville. We'll have that story coming up at 9 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
8:54 in Nashville's Morning News on WTN. Chris, I forgot to ask you what you got coming up.
Well, we're going to talk about a lot of things, including the protest for the judge who is, did you hear about that poor judge?
Yes.
A victim of the Trump administration. We'll talk about the reaction from that.
Thrown in jail.
We'll talk about the new narrative of toddlers on the border being deported, and we'll also talk about tariffs.
Which judge, by the way? Because you have, in what world do we live in? So you have one judge that tried to hide and help an illegal alien escape the authorities. That's the one that was arrested on Friday. And then you've got the one from New Mexico that was literally harboring Tren de Aragua gang members. Dude had a phone full of like bodies torn up by machetes. And this judge actually tried to hide the phone and destroy the phone. He Hillaried the phone.
He Hillaried the phone.
He Clinton the phone.
We'll talk about both of those judges.
All right, very good. 8:55, Mark Spain Real Estate. Avoid the stress of preparing to sell your home with the guaranteed offer from Mark Spain Real Estate. You can skip the hassle of spring cleaning and sell your home fast and for maximum profit. Dan Mand is here. Now, don't worry about showings and open houses or those costly repairs. Mark Spain Real Estate's guaranteed offer allows you to bypass the market, receive an all-cash offer, and close within days. You know, Mark Spain Real Estate, they've got over 12,500 five-star reviews. So this is a company you can trust. They've been serving families for nearly 30 years, and they've helped over 67,500 satisfied clients. So spring into action and sell your home with confidence. Find out what your guaranteed offer would be. There's no obligation. Call them at 855-299-SOLD, 855-299-SOLD. Find them online anytime. MarkSpain.com to get a guaranteed offer on your home today and start packing.